probably the inaugural of Ramblin' Bros, a kind of offshoot of the High Ground that will just be a more broader encompassing thing. Technically, we've already been doing that with our extrospective, but this is more of a formal rollout of that. I'm JosieCat79, aka Chris, joined once again by my usual friend and collaborator, TheDarkneon, aka Derek.
Greetings, my children of the night.
Ah, yes, and if things go to plan, which is a funny thing to say in this year, but if things go to plan, this will be up on Halloween night, where all of you ghosts and goblins out there will be doing your usual traditions, even in these unusual times, that you'd be able to do something like roll up in the movie or have some treats here and there, or just to have a fun time, just so you can, like, escape from the horror show that's been this year.
Yeah, and if it doesn't go to plan, then, well, whatever. Almost everyone else, has, plans they're having a Halloween to go overtime, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm doing this today just because I'm feeling like, just going off the cuff because, for a long time I've been trying to get something off the ground that is more general, because High Ground started basically as a Star Wars concept, and we'll be returning to the High Ground with Mando coming out, all these new games and books around the corner, High Republic, and still some unfinished business regarding discussing the movies. You'll be sure it'll be more High Grounds. Right now it's kind of dormant. And extrospective was a way to kind of warm up the podcasting muscles so that we don't, atrophy, I'd say.
Yeah.
Plus, it's been fun to revisit those movies because, 20 years. And we will be returning normally to the extrospective. We still have Apocalypse, Deadpool 2, Logan, and Dark Phoenix. And if all goes to plan, New Mutants will be out on Blu-ray, and I'll finally get a chance to see it so we can finally close the book properly on the Fox movies of X-Men since 2000 to 2020.
Yeah, so what are we going to talk about today?
Well, since we're in a thriller mood tonight, I think we should just be talking all about Halloween itself. Any memories, any little traditions, any things like that. Speaking of Halloween traditions, a Halloween tradition is the slasher film. And today, as of this recording, we received a new teaser for Halloween Kills featuring some new footage. They're still rolling along on that. It's 30 seconds, but it's enough to let you know that, yeah, they're going a little more harder. And they're planning, hopefully, for a 2021 release date. It would have been this month, but world events happen, so we're gonna get next Halloween, which is fine because I like to say, happy coincidence. It'll be on the 40th anniversary, I believe, of Halloween 2.
Yeah, the movie that made the franchise kind of get stuck in its little rut of a hole before 2018 decided to come around and say, okay, no, we got a clean house here, guys. We're kind of getting ourselves stuck in a little cubby hole we can't get out of.
But anyway, I do like how they weren't shy about showing a little gore here and there in the trailer. And Halloween 2018 was at both restrained and also unleashed. So some of the kills were a little more realistic, like, say, the way Michael killed a couple of folks in the bathroom. Spoilers for a movie that's 2 years old, but yeah. To downright, MK levels. Dr. Sartain, anybody? He sure got a splitting headache from that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I've also seen the mask that's burned and mangled, and it looks so cool. I don't want to bash yet old movies, but it always seems kind of a little bit too lucky for Michael to find another copy of a mask that he's constantly worn. At one point, do you think you might have had random ideas shit, they don't have any William Shatner masks? All right. I guess I better wear the what's the next funny actor to go with? Leonard Nimoy mask here.
And then he'd be killing you with logic. But yeah, so Halloween Kills is moving along. We were actually looking forward to that this year, like a lot of things. But yeah, so because I was surprised when we saw the first Halloween. Okay, it's not the first Halloween, but you know what I mean. Halloween 2018.
Which,
Yeah.
by the way, a lot of people groan whenever like sequel movies just kind of borrow the same name, but I think there's a little bit of twisted genius in that because it normally whenever you have like sequels or titles that have the same name, you always have the year thing. So it's like Halloween 78 and Halloween 2018, and that's the genius of it. Like these are literally taking place in the Halloween of 1978 and Halloween of 2018. So I mean, this kind of goes without saying.
All right, I say Halloween 2018 holds up pretty well. I remember just watching that with my sister just to watch it, and we were like blown away with how well. Like, I know people like to criticize, saying, "Wow, this must be one of the most happy-go-lucky neighborhoods or the most crappiest security ever because all their doors are unlocked." But there's something about that one tracking shot where you see him on the streets with no one aware that who he is. And it's like a shark among a sea of fish that don't know the shark is there, and he's just you see him deciding should I go with the hammer or the knife. It's just like it's a really well done scene.
Right, and oh, like to be fair, for most of these doors that are left open, um, some of them is they just opened them recently, and one that we couldn't see that was in a shot that was locked to the front window only. We can only assume that Michael found some way to break inside. So
Well, yeah. On top of that, I do like how the this movie established. Okay, he may be a psychotic maniac, but he has standards. When he passed by an infant, and people thought, "Oh crap, is he going for the baby?" And he thought, "No, I'll go for the babysitter. That's more his speed."
hmm.
Yeah, he's not pulling a. He's not pull.
Plus, I guess it kind of make is a callback to like Rob Zombie's take on Michael Myers, where he was about to go for someone, but noticed the type of movie they were watching, which was, of course, the Thing from Another World, and said, huh, "You got good taste. You get to live."
Well, yeah, I like that. Yeah, Michael and Jason are two, diametrically opposed, slashers. They have similar methods of, killing, but the way they go about things, like Michael has an interesting view of the world, and he's definitely a sadistic type, not like a sociopath and psychopath. That's why Loomis found him so interesting. He said he spent so many times researching the guy and realizes this guy just has no empathy. He's just empty husk that's inhabited purely by evil. Whereas Jason is a mama's boy who kind of had that morality slapped into him essentially, uh, and he goes about doing his thing, So, I mean, I don't know why had to compare the two, but people always like to bring it. If anyone's an equal to Jason, it's probably the Sawyer boy from the Texas Chainsaw family. The Leatherface guy. They're both kind of a little. Not all there, but also very efficient and very strong, and maybe too stupid to die.
But I actually haven't seen much of that stuff yet. Although
Oh yeah.
I am planning to go see it to a drive-in tomorrow from this recording, where they will be showing the classic Halloween, followed right after with the classic Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And although I do own the original on Steelbook Blu-ray, I haven't really found the time to watch it, or I tried to start, but then something kind of distracted me. So this this was like an opportune chance to watch it fresh on the big screen for the first time, which is
Is it?
a nice plus.
Yeah, I mean, something about horror, especially vintage horror, on a drive-in screen just feels so perfectly natural and right. That is like the Reese's cup of how to watch a horror film is either on the big screen or second best thing, or I mean, yeah, I think even better because you see it in all those other movies. Actually going to a drive-through. I mean, I keep thinking back to that scene in Twister when they go to a drive-through and The Shining is showing, and there's something about that kind of like I don't know, amps it up for me. Like, yeah, Shining is scary in a boxed-in theater. You have nowhere to go. But with the drive-through, I don't know. I think it's the communal experience, probably. I myself have never personally witnessed a proper drive-through, so I might be
You call it a
romanticizing.
drive-through. It's called a drive-in. Like drive-throughs, like food in restaurants.
My bad. That's the old training in me coming out.
But yeah, I
But
do agree, especially since a few weeks ago I did manage to watch Halloween 2018, followed by the original Wes Craven masterpiece, A Nightmare on Elm Street. And of course, there's no way in hell I was going to miss out seeing that movie in particular on the big screen, especially in a drive-in. And it was just like delightful, even.
Like,
Like,
yes,
I could,
you probably
yeah, I honestly agree with the sentiment that it's always perfect to see a horror movie on a big screen, and that's exactly why I'm so glad that they decided to delay the movie to next year. Because I seen these goddamn stupid ass comments saying, "Oh, they should have just put it on stream." It's like I don't want to wait all that long. It's like, dude, a horror movie's best territory is literally in a theater with a boxed in dark room, multiple seats with enough people to satisfy at least the building tension, that huge grind, slow build before everyone starts erupting in the screen.
yeah, I agree. So that will play into later when I talk about there's a thing going on YouTube right now called one horrifying moment, I believe, where YouTubers and commentators and creators just give a little insight on stuff that scared them that stuck with them, like whether it be books, movies, that kind of stuff. And interesting enough, Derek right here actually did do his sort of take on that because I've known him for a good while now, and come to find that one of his most favorite horror films is the 1999 film The Blair Witch Project. Mhm.
Yeah, there's a nice long history of it. Mostly, my introduction with it was from a parody involving Scooby Doo, which is the Scooby Doo project. It was like this um, manner of showcasing the Scooby Doo marathon, which was kind of a yearly thing back then in the late '90s. But in between the commercial inlets, they would have these like original made like animated characters against real life woods backdrop, as if like there was actually filming, and like that was just scary enough for a kid like me. But then I would come to find out this is actually based on something that's actually real. It's just the Blair Witch Project, and look at that, it's like just terrified me. It's like it was that one little curiosity. I'm sure you all have it. Whenever you're growing up and you see like these horror movies that you know you're not allowed to touch, you can't see them yet because like they're like mature, or you can't see all the nudity and tatas and gory stuff without like your head getting twisted and traumatized. But it's that forbidden seeking that you have. That it's like one of these days you'll find the gumption to face your fears and watch these things from beginning to end. And Blair Witch Project was one of them, followed by most of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And when I finally got to watch it, it's so astounding how they managed to make a movie that seems so grounded and like natural. It doesn't feel like it's a movie. It feels like a small indie like documentary that just went completely awry, like in all the wrong ways. And it's like the credit goes to like the creators themselves and these type of actors that had to really like be on the toes to really keep whatever is going on for what they needed to do to shoot for that day.
Yeah, there's a bit of a dispute about what the actual like first found footage film is, but this was the first found footage film to like really become a phenomenon where to the regular person that became their first big exposure. Sure, there was Lost Transmission or whatever that Bigfoot one was called, and there was maybe another one with aliens that happened. Like those predated in a way, but this was the one that like really took that genre to like become a thing, and others have tried to emulate it, even stuff like as recent as Cloverfield or Wreck. I think it's called Wreck, which is like a based off a remake of a Spanish film, which is recording where it's like a marriage during a zombie outbreak. So it's like
Or obviously paranormal activity is also a big one before it decided to go like completely nuts in its head.
yeah. So yeah, this that one is a great film, and we'll get back to that when we talk about it. I thought I'd just bring it up right now that that's one of his favorite horror films, and people will probably look at it now and find it a little quaint. Like they don't show much, or what the heck? I don't get what the big deal is, but you have to kind of be there. It was kind of, you had to be there moment for it to really like register in. Like, I mean, there's probably some of us who think, oh, Johnny Depp gets sucked into a bed and blown into blood. What a cool effect. But for people back then who never seen that kind of violence on a supernatural level, it would be like, what did he do to him? And you'd be like freaking out. So that it's some of these stuff as time goes on becomes like, hell, even back to like the 30s, you would think Frederick March yelling "It's alive," was overactive, hammy acting. But for someone in the 30s to see like that, what was said to be a cadaver hand start slowly waking up, and you'd be thinking, "Oh, this horrible monster has come to life." Like it's all subjective, of course, but you see that, you can imagine for the audience back then how that is like, terrifying. Yeah, sure, there's no excessive violence or gore in those Universal films. The Hammer films brought all that, but you can see why it kind of had to. You kind of had to be there for it to really like jump up. Like if you're probably thinking, "Oh, if the people in the '50s thought the Thing from Another World was scary, imagine someone time traveled and showed them John Carpenter's Thing."
Yeah, and obviously let's also not forget like stuff like Psycho, which like was like so out there and intense that like Alfred Hitchcock made it a rule for the theaters that were showing it to not let anybody in as soon as like the movie starts. Like as soon as it starts, it's like, nope, you can't come in. Like your your mind is not going to comprehend what's going on from beginning to end. So
It's like basically, I'd hope everybody was greeted by Bruce Campbell saying nobody will be seated after the theater doors are closed.
yeah, but
But
like so. Should I actually discuss the horrifying moment, or you gonna link it down in the description?
no, I think we should actually go ahead and talk about it. So yeah, so the other day, Derek wrote it up, and I actually read it. I was like, I've seen the movie with him. I actually did a viewing with him when we were leading up to the anniversary of Blair Witch. Plus, I wanted to watch Blair Witch by 2016 by Adam Wingard, since he's going to be directing Godzilla vs Kong, and that one also gave me a bit of a fright. Oh, we also had the unfortunate indignity of suffering and laughing through Book of Shadows. I remember, I think the perfect comment was at the very end when he starts freaking out saying somebody fucked with it. I jokingly told Derek that's what the director said as soon as he saw the end product.
Yep. And we're still waiting for someone to bring about an actual director's cut. It's like, oh, these days we're getting like the Snyder cut, huh? Well, where's my Book of Shadows cut, huh?
Because I remember the director wanted to go a super, like, it was a more cohesive way, and he wanted to go more ambiguous with was this really happening or not. But the theaters were like more. I mean, the studio was like more boobs, more blood. I think that was the mandate.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, ghosts like that. Okay, but yeah. Anyway, so I watched the Blair Witch, and I think of all those movies, Blair Witch and the Blair Witch Project, I think Blair Witch did get me on the end of my seat. It's a nice, fresh revisiting of that world. But the King crown has to go to the original, as Sidney Prescott famously said in Scream 4. Uh,
No, don't fuck with originals,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think the first Blair Witch, I remember just buying the tape and watching it on a whim and being so. It's a movie that kind of invites you in. It either hooks you or it doesn't. But when you start getting into it, it's like you're lost with them. So when you get to those last few moments, it's like, So, and I watched it again with Derek, and even then it was still a little chilling. And even reading his description in the one horrifying moment sent shudders. Like I just thought about I mean, if you see it from that lens, it's even more terrifying. In fact, I'll go ahead and let you take the floor on that. So go ahead.
Okay, so my one horrifying moment was mostly at the end. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to hit you with a spoiler warning here from here on out. So in Blair Witch Project, at a point, one of the filmmakers, the character named Josh, seemingly disappears one morning without any trace of where he might have gone. The other two, Heather and Mike, are then subjected to a full night of hearing his cries of agony and pain, as they're just helpless to do anything. I mean, it's pitch black, and the sounds keep shifting around them, so it's hard to pinpoint anything. And also, it's hard to even say it is him, or it could be some of the source. Because previous nights, it could be like different sounds of someone walking. They could think it's a deer or someone like screwing around with them, but the cries of agony and pain are really undoubtful, and it's enough that unnerves the two to have a long, restless night afterwards. And then, of course, the next morning they find a small stack of twigs wrapped with Josh's piece of his shirt. Eventually, Heather looks in and finds the sticks housing what seems like a bloody wrapped cloth of the same shirt. And inside that is what seems to be pulled teeth, pieces of the tongue, or something. It's hard to tell. Heather tries to show it on camera, but she's freaking out. She's in complete utter shock. So after that, there's the infamous Heather gives the face front apology that everyone spoofs to death because they feel that the night that follows is they're going to hear Josh again, and they intend to go after him or whatever it is, just put an end to it. And it's probable that they're going to die from it. And Heather hopes that the footage will eventually be discovered so that their memory will not be lost. So, but the thing about the ending is I have to backpedal a little bit to the beginning, where at the start of the movie, they go around Burkittsville and ask around the locals questions about if they know about the Blair Witch, and they get various answers, some like consistent, some not. But one answer they do get consistent is an event that kind of happened pretty recently, like about 40, 30 years, I think, about this old local hermit, Rustin Parr, who managed to lure in children, almost about 8 of them, to his old house in the woods, luring with candies and goods and all that stuff. And because a voice told him to do it, it was the voice of a woman, he claims in his trial. And he would take at least 2 children down to the basement, and he would put one face against the corner of the wall in the basement because says they filled the eyes on him, and he really didn't like that. So he'd have one kid like staring at the corner, and he'd have the other kid staring at that kid. He would kill the first kid, and then once he was done, he would go immediately for the one in the corner. And he did this for 7 kids, but one of them managed to get away and was the pizza sentence Parr to the noose. So now at the end of the movie, they hear the voice of Josh screaming out to them, beckoning them over. This time he's not in pain. He's asking them, "Come over, help! I'm over here." They follow the voice and then come across a house. They find a house in the woods. Bear in mind, across the movie, they have been wandering around the woods and not finding a hint of civilization or any road to get out of there. Like, even at one point, they've somehow feel like they've made a full circle and returned to an earlier point they made, despite only going south the entirety of the day. That that one really fucked them up over. They really had to recover from that. But Heather and Mike are both geared with the 16 millimeter and RCA high 8 camcorder respectively, and venture into the house that seems to have appeared out of fuck all nowhere and go inside. And the whole place is like run down and just seen better days. It's complete shambles. And Mike believes he's hearing Josh's voice upstairs at first. They're careful to go up because they don't know if the support is still there, if the house is rotted out, they could fall down. And when they reach the top, they find the walls are painted with children's hands across. And that definitely indicates this house is the Rustin Parr house, which I'll admit it's creepier considering that in the lore of the Blair Witch Project, the house that Rustin Parr lived in was burned to the ground as soon as he was hung up. Because obviously the people wanted nothing to do with him at all after that. So they're obviously in this house. It's standing now, apparently. And suddenly Mike hears Josh's voices coming in the basement now. He gets chased while Heather's telling them to slow down constantly because even she said she can't hear the voice properly. And I should also make a note that all the sound in this ending is coming from the high 8 camcorder. The 16 millimeter that Heather has can't pick up sound. It relies on this audio recorder on it separately because it's like an indie documentary.
Yeah, the microphone. Yeah.
He knows what's up. He's done film school.
Yeah.
But as Mike is going down, he keeps hearing out, and we can only hear from a distance Heather's crying out Mike to just stop and slow down because she feels that something's really wrong here. Mike reaches down the basement. He's still calling Josh. Suddenly, something muffles his voice, and from our view of the camera, we can assume something or someone grabbed him, and he drops the camera. So the rest of the movie now is the recorded 16 millimeter that Heather has following the high audio. And Heather is constantly crying out for Mike, going completely hysterical as she reaches down the basement. She turns the corner and then sees Mike. But he's standing in the corner, face turned away from her, not even saying a word. And it's exactly like the Rustin Parr murders. So we see Mike standing from the view of the camera, and the camera falls over along with the voice of Heather being silenced as something, someone, whatever, attacks her from behind, and, well, we don't know. They don't see it on screen. We don't hear what happens. It's completely unsure. The camera's just broken and the reel is left running as we hear nothing else. And that scene is what I feel terrified people that went to the cinemas back in '99. It wasn't like all the long arguments or talk about where the map is, who had the map left. It was this scene that it leads more questions than there are answers, and it's definitely a scene that really sticks with me every time because I even rewatched it recently, and as soon as it was reaching the end, my attention got to the TV screen and it was locked on there. I couldn't move. I just had to see it go out. And
You mentioned that you also watched it on VHS, which somehow enhanced it further, you feel.
oh yeah, I feel like the DVD somehow fucked up the film. It seems pixelated whenever I watch it. So, but VHS is clean, so I don't know. Maybe the Blu-ray fixed it, or we might get a 4K that makes it a little bit more smoother, like it's an actual uh, camcorder recording. But
I,
this, yeah, but this the whole scene is a gigantic mousetrap for these poor filmmakers that led to their supposed demise, and there's no evidence of what happened to them. This movie is literally that's all that's found after what seems like weeks of exhausted manhunt to find them, only for this film and all of its um, attached minutia were found and dug up 1 year after their disappearance. And the thing that sticks with me is it's so minimum. There's no CGI blowout fest. There's nothing like whatever Paranormal Activity Ghost Dimension did with the 3D cameras and all that. It's it's a, it's the crescendo after a eerie build up all throughout this movie. It's after like nightly visit, encounter with a force of stick figures hung across, and the disappearance and possible death or mutilation of one of their loved ones that led them to this demise. And it's also effective because it does not do too much to showcase how terrifying it is to find your only other friend, the one person you clung to for support, despite having like facets them, possibly biting them or arguing with the maps and all that. But after losing another friend, and because there was a scene where they're like we can only see them trying to mull over and just hold it together because that they only have each other, and to have that one friend has standing in the corner doing nothing, not even saying a goddamn thing, is just horrifying. And that's what I believe to be the best way to terrify your audiences that come for a frightening time. Leaving them more questions, but seeing a scary story told by locals of a town already spooked come true in the most unsettling manner.
Very good, very good. And that's like I said, just even just hearing the recap made me a little shuddery. And on top of that, the movie doesn't insult the audience's intelligence. If you were paying attention, you remember that story from the way back. When you start seeing the handprints and realize this is the Rustin Parr house, your own mind puts that together. And
Exactly.
you,
They don't even even Heather and Mike don't even spell it out. They just see that and they already realize, oh shit, oh this is wrong. This is bad. We gotta get out of here. And of course Mike hears Goss's voice and like is distracted and has to go down.
but yeah, so that's why I think that That's pretty chilling. On top of that, this movie was assisted by all the media blitz, like the new local news saying how this feels like a sensation. All the on TV, the specials like the Curse of the Blair Witch, explaining, you know, more about Burgettsville and treating this like an actual event. Like it's like a lost, like an unsolved mysteries type program they made, and it was for just the Blair Witch, I believe.
Yeah. It also, the big crux that really helped sell it was the website. Like, this was at a point in the age back then where people were still kind of unsure about websites, but this was the one that really showed the marketing bleed in really nicely to help push the movie out while giving like people like extras that aren't in the movie. So like you'll have like Heather's journal that she wrote, or like interviews with their loved ones about what they think have happened, or the police looking over the found evidence of like the film reels and dirty high camera cassette tapes and all that. It's like extra. It's that little extra push that really showed like the creators actually really cared for this movie.
And I believe they still do. Like I believe the original one of the original creators for that is still trying to pull forward a brand new project that is hopefully fresh in that same inventive way. Because they tried it with the Blair Witch, where they actually had it disguised as another movie called The Woods, and it was called The Woods for a long time. So at the near the end, they said, "Guess what? It's actually Blair Witch."
Yeah, I that one actually blew my mind a little bit. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. So and plus, I believe there were those CD-ROM games they made back in the day, plus that Blair Witch modern game that's on consoles now, I believe.
Yeah, I still need to play that. I know people give shit to it, but it's like, I mean, I'm still gonna play it.
And it would be hard to pull off something on that level again. I think the closest thing, funny enough, that came to that is not even a horror film. It's actually a superhero film. The Dark Knight had a lot of viral marketing before the first official trailer reveal and stuff like that. And there was even one where they were doing like this Joker contest for like lookalikes, and they said that one of the contestants was Juan, and then later found beaten, bloodied in a parking lot with the Joker card saying "See you next summer," stuff like that.
Wow, did that really happen?
Well, I don't think he was actually beaten up. It was for I mean, it was supposed to like there were all these things. There was even one where a trailer leaked before the actual trailer, but it was actually Jokerized. So there was like these scrawls and bats and ha-has all over it. So it again, they did a lot of viral marketing for Dark Knight back then. I think that's similar, and even Cloverfield attempted that with a website explaining how like an oil tanker went down for some reason, and that's the same oil tanker you see on Liberty Island, or what the Sleuth Show company is. It's like that's the company that he's going to go work for. It's like it's they tried that, and it works on some levels, but I think on the level that Blair Witch did, that it would be pretty hard to replicate. I'm not saying it's impossible. I mean, lightning in a bottle strikes once, but every now and then you get another one from Zeus. So I wonder if we ever will see something on that level again.
I mean, who knows, really?
But
But
yeah,
now that I shared my one horrifying moment, do you think you have one you can share for us?
oh, yeah, I've kind of been mulling it over because there's a couple of scenes from my childhood that like freaked me out. Whether it be like some people have talked about it too. Like I was also a child of the '90s, so I saw Batman and was freaked out by Matt Hagen, aka Clayface. Because well, look at him.
Yeah, that his defeat was kind of a little bit shocking.
And like I know it's kind of I like that these new movies are going for a realistic grounded approach, but that also means that I sadly won't be able to see a proper Clayface like that for a while until they change direction. I'm sure you could do Clayface as a grounded serious thing, but what's the fun in that? Like I mean the actual shape-shifting amorphous man of living clay, that's what I want to see on the big screen someday.
Yeah.
But yeah, so stuff like that happened. But there's one thing I was hard pressed. I considered at one point talking about Jurassic Park, which is an adventure film, but also has elements of horror. Like famously, everyone talks about the Velociraptor scene in the kitchen. Like you have these two intelligent killers, and if you remember what Grant mentioned about how they're dangerous, you had that in the back of your mind. Like they kept the raptors hidden throughout the entire movie up until we're back in business and you get to see one in full view. It's already killed Sam Jackson, so you know it's serious because it's killed Sam Jackson. And yeah, so there's that. I was actually going to go with the Dilophosaur scene in Jurassic Park, which is both terrifying in the book and the movie because you got this unassuming dinosaur and you find out that it's the little ones you got to look out for too. True, they did the same thing also with the compies later in The Lost World, which you might argue is a little more scarier than a gigantic Tyrannosaurus or even the Spitter because you got these little tiny little teeth from all directions just tearing at you. I mean, just thinking about that should probably give people the willies.
Wait, so that you're not gonna go with that? I thought you said
No,
it's gonna be that one.
no. What I actually am considering is actually, you know, people who know me best. My name is AVP Fanboy, Jonesy Cat 79. That all comes from one particular movie, and a very important movie to me, too. That would be Ridley Scott's 1979 movie Alien. Now, you're all probably thinking, is he going to talk about the chest burster? Well, everyone's talked to death about that. And while I agree, I was more fascinated by that than horrified. Is he going to talk about the first kill with the engineer and the cat? Well, that was also a little chilling too, and or even the captain. No, but I think there's one scene that will always stick with me from this movie. But for those of you who don't know, Alien, of course, is a 1979 sci-fi film that was set where a hapless truckers in space, the crew of the Nostromo, with an oil refinery rig, basically come across a unknown transmission from some faraway planet, and the policy says they got to investigate. They find this derelict spaceship, remains of an ancient society, and find in the basement cargo hold eggs. One of the crew members gets an egg, a parasite stuck on his face from this egg, and it dies later, and they think he's fine. And he later gives birth to this horrifying creature that pops out of his stomach and in a bloody fashion, and then ends up stalking the crew as it evolves and grows, and they have to deal not only with the alien but with threats from trying to trust each other. And it's a really claustrophobic thriller film. Everybody would tend to compare it, the Terror from Beyond Space, or other thing from another world. But Ridley Scott himself said he wanted to go for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre of sci-fi films. Like I want to mix Star Wars with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. People thought I'm going 2001 and this. Like no, and he likes Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it's a pretty straightforward film. You have this people go into the old dark house. You think don't go there. They go there and they get dispatched in very efficient, quick fashions, and you kind of the claustrophobia grows the more they're picked off. So that's what he wanted to do with Alien. So I think that there's all kinds of horror in this movie, from isolationist horror, the idea of being miles away from any help whatsoever, like you're on your own with this problem. There's a sort of existential horror from the fact like you find this giant remains inside of a skeleton inside a seat that's like bigger than any man has to be, and you don't know what happened to it, and you realize that this was something vast and majestic, but it's gone now. There's that kind of horror. Like when the music first reveals the space jockey, there's like a very alien sting done with the strings, and you're like, that blows your mind. It's probably what H.P. Lovecraft was going for with the Ancient Ones and Cthulhu and all that stuff. That this stuff is beyond our mind. That to think about it would just crush your ego and make you feel so insignificant. So there's all that kind of horror. I mean, just the horror, corporate horror from the fact that the company sends one of their own in there who's actually not even a person. He's literally hardware for them, and he goes rogue. That's kind of scary in itself. But for me, the one moment that really sticks out to me is near the end when after they lost the captain and many of them have been dispatched, there are only 3 crew members left, and they decide they're going to escape, but they need to set the escape pod. They have to get extra air for the tank. So the engineer Parker, played by Yaphet Kotto, and the navigator Lambert, played by Veronica Cartwright, who also was the mother in the opening of Scary Movie 2, if you like your spoofs. Yeah, she and it was also in The Birds with Hitchcock, so she knows her way around the place, has to go and retrieve the air tanks while Sigourney Weaver's Ripley has to, set the ship up. So you see her alone, and you're thinking they're setting Ripley up to be fodder for the alien because that's already happened. And every time someone ventures off, they tend to, they tend to get dispatched. But the what happens is that she ends up getting spooked by the cat in the jump scare. So I know people like to joke about the fake out scares, and cats always are on that list. What did you say?
Catch!
Hello?
Catch! Yep, I'm still here.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Oh,
Hello?
sorry. I didn't hear anything for a second. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna have to edit that part. Okay. Yeah. So cats. Yeah. So she gets spooked by the cat, and before she puts the cat in the in the carrier case, was to save the cat, he makes a little yowl, a little growl that something is wrong, and the music starts doing a cue because while she's looking for Jones, the cat, that's where my name comes from. She can hear the microphone, and it's because they get the air tanks, but they can't get to the door, so they have to roll it. So they're making a lot of loud clanging noise. So you can hear that clanging through the speaker. And then there's this lovely cue that Ridley does, where the sound editors do, where anytime the alien is nearby, you start hearing this rhythmic pulse, almost like a heartbeat. And every time it's on screen, you start to hear it. So you start hearing that as they're rolling the tanks, and you see the shadow of the alien come down. And she starts hearing them freak out over the radio, and she realizes they're in danger. And this is where we get our first full glimpse of the alien, because we've seen the alien in bits and pieces. So here we are seeing it rising, cornering Lambert in the corner, while Parker's telling her to get out of the way because he can't shoot it with the flamethrower unless she's out of the way. But she's so traumatized by fear. She's so catatonic. She can't do anything. She's just a babbling mess at this point. Parker tries to go into getting closer to save her, and the alien just tail whipped him in one hit. Now he's the biggest guy on the crew. He's pretty strong and talks a lot of smack. So to see him get broken down like a rag doll by this thing in one swoop is pretty out there. Now here's where it gets spooky for me. It's when so as Ripley's running to get to them, you see the alien just opening its jaws in profile to the camera while Parker's just screaming his head off. And here's the thing, because he's been pretty calm and reserved most of this movie, few emotional outbursts, but here he is just letting it all out as this thing is just opening its lips, showing its silver fangs, and slowly opening its little tongue. Like, it's shown before in the movie that it could kill its prey in a single burst, but here's the alien just toying with him, letting him know his demise is coming. As you just like, I saw this on the big screen at a recent screening, and you just see black with the outline of the alien and that those teeth just coming into the middle. If you watch it on Blu-ray and tape, you're thinking, oh, no big deal, he's showing his teeth, but it's like all you see is that you're seeing Parker's last images, and he's last effort. He yells out, "Get out of the room!" before the alien, in one quick instant, bites his head off with the tongue bite. And the music's not helping either. The music by Jerry Goldsmith is very horrific. So Lambert hasn't run out. The alien turns around doing this little rhythmic dance and sticks its tail behind her. And next thing you know, all we hear is just her screams. She's making these very, gasping cries for help and anguish, and makes a rather odd sound before the alien roars, and she gives a piercing scream, and there's nothing. Sigourney rounds the corner calling for at least Parker because she knows Lambert's probably gone because she didn't know what happened, and she just shudders because the alien has displayed their bodies in a fashion that can't even be seen fully on screen, but it's enough to completely horrify Sigourney. And from then on, she's the only person on the ship, and it's just her and this thing that just kills rather sadistically. It's not just a shark just eating. It's not just it's a little more intelligent than that. It's not just a bug, and that really hits the horror right there. The fact that it chose to play with its victims in such a way, because it's shown earlier in the movie that it could just one swipe someone's head off. It could bite someone's head off. It could impale them with a tail. But no, he decided to toy with them. He liked seeing probably the fear in them, like Yaphet Kotto screaming his head off, Lambert just stuck in the corner. And that is why I always hold the alien in a higher esteem than say Aliens or the subsequent sequels. So I think that will always stick with me, because I always remember seeing it on tape was scary, and then getting to see it on the revival again for the 40th anniversary on big screen. I got why audiences were like, some of them used to sit in the front row as the movie went on. They would move to the back of the theater so they could still watch it but not be that close. So that's what I think is a moment for me. What do you think?
Well, that definitely sounds terrifying to know those first time viewers in a theater just say, I think I'm just gonna have some distance between me and the screen. I go to the back, far back to the wall.
Actually, that's what's funny is that you can tell who hasn't seen the movie because there are people who like. When I was at the screening, people who were expecting it and they were cheering a little bit, not cheering, but you hear people who they either they have seen it and it still gets them, or they haven't seen it and they react like during the scene when the captain gets chased by the alien in the air ducts and they say don't go that way and he turns around and stare. I heard a woman 2 rows ahead of me go like oh like that just surprised her and that kind of made me go it's still got some people and it's that's why I really like Alien because it's sci-fi horror done more in the horror than the sci-fi because yes the sci-fi is there but that's more of the window dressing the real heart of it is a horror film so that's why I understand why Antarctica does that little tradition where they do a double feature before the long winter of watching Alien and The Thing together.
Well, that's definitely a pretty good horrifying moment to choose. I would admit.
But yeah, because yeah, the chest burster that's shocking and that's iconic. The first kill by the cat, but when he's looking for the cat, that's also a pretty good moment. Like a lot of it's scary because the movie's a ride that keeps winding the screw as it goes on, and the more the movie goes on, the less friendly the ship becomes. You start seeing the alien in just about every single.
Horror, shadow.
I think that's why the Alien Isolation game works so well because it does give you that horror. I mean, it's a little less scary to go up against aliens when you're a person with a machine gun, and you can still get horror
Although
from that. Oh yeah, the Aliens has a different kind of horror, but for like a straight up like tension thriller horror, I think Alien nails that pretty well, and I think I would like to see the movies return to that kind of feeling, like not exact format, but you know what I mean. Funny enough, I think the one of the few that kind of gets that only a little bit is Paul Anderson's Alien versus Predator. Side, once the predators come in, and once they start fighting, it turns into more of a monster brawl. And before that, there is a lot of like that oozing tension.
yeah, but I can now definitely understand why, like in Scream 2, wherever they discuss about the sequel, it's like even when they bring up aliens, they say, "Yeah, there's no accounting for taste." It says Ridley Scott rules. Although I will argue that the moment that Mickey points out T2, that should have just been the clincher. It's like, yeah, I know the original Terminator is pretty like out there. It was adding sci-fi with the slasher and futuristic and all that, but like T2 has like that, but it also discusses about trauma and like PTSDs and like father figures and all that. It's like there's literally no comparison. Why the hell would you even argue, say like, oh yeah, no, the original Terminator is better than T2? No, no, good sir. I would argue no.
I'm kind of in that camp.
What? I'm gonna strangle you, you little furry rotten.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I like T2. The T1000 is a very scary enemy, and the fact that it can look like anybody, and although people might crucify me for saying this, the Rev 9 is an improvement over the T1000. I,
Oh yeah, the Dark Fate.
well, think about it. I mean, the way that we're interfaced with technology and like, I think I would like to see Terminator go back to that horror aspect because the first movie was definitely sci-fi thriller with a little bit of horror, especially in the way the Terminator just mercilessly dispatches you. It's an unfeeling killing machine, literally. That I think one of the scarier scenes is when it goes to Sarah Connor's apartment and finds her two friends, just fooling around, and then he just mercilessly dispatches them in a cold manner. And the music's super, distorted because Brad Fiddle is using a Casio, and that's like, it amplifies the horror. And obviously, you get more horrific when the endoskeleton comes out. In fact, I think I've told people before, I used to be deathly afraid of that endoskeleton for some reason. It used to scare the crap out of me.
Yeah, well, I argue that the T1000 is also mostly scary for the fact that it's so easy to blend in to society when you're acting like one of the humans. Like, if you're like big, burly, like Arnold Schwarzenegger going around, like some of it just goes out the window.
Oh
But
yeah,
like
but
you have this guy that's like posed as police officer going around questioning people, and like people don't bat an eye. They just see it's a police officer asking questions, locating someone. It's like, oh yeah, well, I think I saw him over there. It's like it's so unassuming. It's such a perfect disguise. It's like so fucking eerie,
hell,
and
like
not
that.
to mention the fact that it also takes other forms more familiar to John to try to lure him in. Like he tries to pose as like the step parents and gets the answer wrong and is just completely upset and just decides to take it out on the fucking dog of all things.
On top of that, yeah, you're right. The scariest scene with him probably is like the scene where he's talking, and he seems so natural when he's talking to the cops about them being legal guardians, and when I love that look on his face when they mentioned that a big guy on a bike came by. He realizes that's his opponent, Terminator, but he still keeps his cool, and he also has a little sense of humor too. Like he seems a little sadistic, like when
Oh, he's fucking sadistic, especially in the climax where for Sarah gets like skewered in his shoulder, and like it would be easy to just off Sarah because like she's been just as much of a problem with Skynet, but like the T1000 is a little bit smarter than that. He knows that John's like getting protective of his mother now that like all this stuff turns out to be fucking true now, and he's just telling her call to John, just twisting the knife for like extended the blade finger in her shoulders, just telling her to just call to John, and this will stop.
and on top of that, even when he almost gets blown into the lava, into the molten steel, he does a little finger wag like naughty, naughty, naughty. Like, see, this is not just some machine. He's got a little bit of a personality matrix. I wouldn't say he has a soul, but he's still a soulless killing machine with that way he stares at you when he stops. So, whereas in the same way, the Terminator became more human as he had his read and write mode turned on, and of course, when the T1000 falls into the steel, it's in horrific death throes. It's actually like it's not having a good day when it dies.
Yeah, and as you can see, this is exactly why I just scoff whenever Scream 2 says that Terminator 2's got nothing on the fucking original. Like, come on.
Yeah. Godfather 2 though. I don't think there's an argument for that one, but I actually have to see the Godfather movies.
I've actually seen both of the movies, and I can agree. Godfather 2 totally challenges the first one.
That's great to hear. And okay, wait. Speaking of Scream, then another movie that I really enjoy, Scream 1 through 4. I kind
God,
of have
yeah. Yeah, I've been finding myself constantly rewatching the Scream movies more as Halloween gets closer to the end. Like, it's it's just the perfect type of movie to watch for Halloween. Honestly, it's hard.
especially with friends. Like I would like to see you try showing Scream to someone who hasn't seen it before, and see their reactions when they find out like who the real killer is and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I think the only person I could be able to think of would be showing my brother, but like it'd be kind of hard pressed to describe to make him watch it. I could say it's kind of like a dark humor kind of funny thing, but I don't know. Like
All right.
horror's not his thing unless it's like um Doom Eternal or like if they ever make a or if it's like sometimes it's horror video games he'll be able to toe the line. And like he's played Dead Space, he's played um I think he's played a little bit of FNAF or just watched it. Definitely plays a lot of the Demon Souls or I mean Dark Souls and Doom Eternal. So
On that note, I do find it funny how close horror overlaps with comedy. How we end up laughing as much as we're screaming. Like, for example, a lot of us like to watch horror streams of games so we can see our favorite personalities react in funny ways to stuff. Like even like say, I remember we used to watch some of Megan's stream of FNAF once, and it was funny seeing her freak out. Turtles and Monkeys, for those of you who know her.
yeah, yeah, she's awesome. Uh,
And like there's like the
I,
bigger ones like
I,
PewDiePie and
I,
Markiplier.
I miss watching her stream. I mean, I've seen her street. Like the most recent one she did was like last week. She got so bored that she said, "Hey, let's just make like a hero in City of Heroes." And it's like, okay, why not?
Yeah. So, but yeah, we like to watch our favorite personalities laugh. Sometimes we see our favorite horror movies have a joke in it, like Scream 1 and 2, while, thrillers also have, a bit of comedy in them. Some might have said 3 might have gone too far there. Who knows?
Well,
But
it's a don't blame it. It's a product of the times. It literally came out a year after Columbine, so
yeah,
like
yeah,
it was completely out of its hands.
yeah. So then, on top of that, yeah, so I find that funny that even like in the 80s, you'd have your Jason kill someone in a slightly comical way, like the sleeping bag, or you'd have Freddy Krueger make a zinger after killing someone, like shooting someone up with heroin and saying, "Oh, what a rush!" So there's, I mean, or the big one, your big break in television.
Yeah. That then of course those kills would be cut short thanks to the true enemy in the horror genre, the MPAA.
Yeah, but what's great about that, speaking of that, is that a little bit of a spoiler alert for Scream, is that one of the killers does get dispatched by a TV, which people think might have been a callback to Wes that
Oh,
death. And
I didn't realize. I never realized that. All these years of watching the stream, and I never once thought, well, hey, you get. I mean, I guess maybe it would have been more funny if Dream Warriors was playing on the TV just as like Freddy was screaming out "Welcome to Prime Time, bitch." But I just thought it was a little bit too on the nose for that one.
on top of that, Kevin Williamson was responsible for a lot of the wit in those script lines. So Wes laughed, saying he said keep it in, and he didn't have nothing to say with when the line brought up that Freddy Krueger was scary. Well, the first one was, and the rest of them weren't so good. That Wes thought that was a good little jab at himself. He thought, I'll tape it, because a lot of the sharp wit, like when they're criticizing the movies, comes from Kevin. Because I think he's thinking what we're thinking, like, why did I go up the stairs? They could have gone like. So I think a lot of that comes from Kevin Williamson, who understands the teenage mind at the time, and applying that with the sharpness and wit, and the masterful craftness that Wes Craven has. So that was a nice happy accident. That was another movie that took the world by storm, was the Scream phenomenon. In fact, I believe there's a documentary out there called Still Screaming. I'm meaning to get a hold of that one. It has interviews
Yeah,
with the cast.
but I do believe Casey totally deserved getting skewered on a tree like that for dissing on Dream Warriors and New Nightmare of all things. Like the other ones, I'll say like I'll just shrug and say, yeah, I guess they do have their faults, but Dream Warriors and West Craven's New Nightmare, fuck you.
Uh, Speaking of which, funny thing about Scream, for those of you out there, I don't know if there's a way to obtain it on DVD, but for some reason, when they were printing the VHSs, they actually managed to get a hold of an uncut edition of Scream. I think it says R-rated on the box, but I believe before they trimmed it for the MPA for the theatrical release, they had a work print around, and that ended up getting circulated. So you get a little more gorier bits in the movie. Like, for example, when the boyfriend in the opening gets skewered, you kind of hear the noise and see him react in the theatrical cut, whereas in the VHS, you get to see all of his inner insides come out.
I wonder who one of us happens to have a copy of that VHS.
I do.
Uh, so do I. So
But yeah, and so it's funny how violence sometimes can go either too far or not far enough, and I think that I would argue that people saying that like Scream 4 is pretty damn brutal when it comes to the other three, if you ask me.
well, it is. I honestly always call so when the power of the Scream series originally was that it was a trilogy, and like even the third film is like a trilogy is such a powerful thing. But then when the fourth movie came out, a lot of people thought, oh no, now it's like not a trilogy anymore. I call Scream 4 the reboot Scream. Like it's even shows in the title when they stylized the A to be a 4, but it's still just like a streamlined Scream title. So
Uh, are you like one of those people out there also that are hoping that the fifth Scream movie is called Scream with the stylized 5S?
no,
5 cream?
no. Anyways, it definitely feels like a reboot movie, but it's like done in a clever way. Like unlike the other franchises that felt like, well, I guess we gotta update it because no one's gonna take a movie seriously if it doesn't have like more grungier lighting and people having access to internet and cell phones. So
Actually, that would have been funny if Scream 4 went the Rob Zombie route and became really trashy. Although there was kind of a hint at that by the fact that one of the Ghostface masks on sale at the time was the cornfield mask, I believe.
yeah, that was actually kind of pretty cool when I saw that.
I believe it was making fun of the whole trend of let's do it again, but grungier and dirtier.
But yeah, but no, it's a clever way. It's a reboot in a meta sense. Obviously, less strength there, but like a reboot because they're doing the whole thing over again, but they're changing the rules a bit. But it's still also a continuation for following the old guard, the original three actors and characters. So it it's I would say it's the reboot that all reboots wish it could be.
And I saw an article saying that 2018 Halloween was good, but technically Scream 4 did its storyline first and a little better about the whole survivor years later kind of growing past her pain, but still having that in the back of her mind to be able to fight back so that Sydney still has that in Scream 4. In fact, Nev Campbell as Sydney Prescott is one of the more endearing female heroines out there in the horror franchise, up there along with Nancy and Laurie, if you ask me.
True, but I think the reason why Halloween had like the bigger thing is because it's the OG girl herself, Laurie Strode, that's come back to show that she's not fucking around anymore. So
Now, I would love, I would love to see where
all the
Scream 5.
like main leads or quote unquote final girls. Sorry, I've come to really hate the term final girls now, thanks to In Search of Darkness. Discuss how that's kind of become a derogatory term. It's like, oh well, we gotta have a final girl because that's the rules of the horror movies. We got a villain, we got a final girl, we got all the kill fodder. But like Laurie Strode was the original like go to like every girl that had to face the horror, but also had to still be a responsible, mature being to take care of like small innocents that were caught in a crossfire. And it's the entire figure that all other horror movies after tried to copy off after. And of
I
course
thought
and of course you get some characters that actually rise above to become their own beings, like of course the Nancy Thompson or Sidney Prescott. But of course there's always ones that are like, oh yes, you like Laurie Strode, but different. Like even the Rob Zombie movie kind of felt as like, oh well, I guess she's Laurie Strode, but it's Laurie Strode in name only.
you know what's funny is that Daniel Harris's character, the friend, was more of a Laurie than than the girl that was Scout that was playing Laurie in the Rob Zombie films.
Yeah, especially like in the sequel.
Oh God, I love. By the way, unrated cut is the way to go with the Rob Zombie H2 sequel,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
because there's a beautiful scene where it's all right where Daniel Harris's character unfortunately is killed by Michael, and Brad Dourif's sheriff has to react, and they play this beautiful little montage from like it's supposed to be like family memories, and they're like I think actually actual video from Daniels from back in the Harris from back in the old Halloween film days, I think. But
yeah.
so and I also H2 has it does have the more controversial Michael Speaks ending in it, which is pretty funny. All these years, what does he have to say?
Die!
Well, what do you expect from Sabretooth, right?
But yeah, so all these slash movies are like good, but like another type of horror movie that I love to watch are like the ones that are just kind of action schlocky. Like there's horror elements into it, but like the characters like really like kick ass and take names in it. Like of course there's the Aliens, the Evil Dead and Army of Darkness movies, like even like one-off like guilty pleasures like Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters of all things. Most
Uh,
underrated movie ever.
Planet Terror from the Grindhouse movies, I believe.
Oh yeah, that one was like balls to the wall, insane. I really literally rewatched that, and I completely I was thrown off. Like was completely unprepared for like the amount of gore and like blockiness. But what do you expect? They had Tom Savini on board, so
And it was Robert Rodriguez who, funnily enough, directs Stab in Universe in the Scream movies.
yeah, he does. But I would actually pay to see like his version of Stab, honestly.
Oh yeah, and
Well,
he's a
front to like front to back the entire movie. Like all we ever get is just this opening shower scene, which like I was confused. Like, okay, so you're gonna cook popcorn while you're going in the shower.
I think
Like,
Gail had to sex it up a little to make it sensationalize it, right?
yeah, but it's like maybe you want to wait until after you're done showering before you start putting the pan in the hot pot.
By the way, let's talk about that for a while. We have a famous. Everyone has their favorite slasher that has a look. You have Jason in the hockey mask, of course. Although some people are more partial to the elephantine sack that he wears in two. You have the Michael Myers and his William Shatner mask, which somehow changes in the 4, 5, and 6 movies for copyright reasons. I think, especially in 5, where you had like a crow-like nose for some reason.
Uh, uh I argue that the fourth movie was like kind of off. I think
He
it's mostly the hair.
It was the eyebrows too. It looked like he was in a constant state of, "Oh, I'm surprised," right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump on you.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
just to even things out.
Because like in Halloween's 1 through 2, that mask is just blank, but it scares you. Whereas the one in 4, like I said, I think the eyebrows are too high, so he looks like he's very like surprised, kind of cute almost. H2O's mask was fine, but it also had that weird trait of physically showing the eyes through the holes. I don't know, that's hit or miss with some people.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they should have found some way to dark it, or hell,
But
make like they said that this is supposed to follow Halloween 2, right?
yeah,
So what they could have just found some way to show that even after all these years of healing, like the shots the eye that he had to endure, like still left a mark, like they're like this discoloration.
but yeah, and then of course,
Like
Resurrect.
there's literally like an actual medical condition called like an 8 ball like um head. Like you guys know gorillas, right? The leads to singer 2D, and Alias always has black eyes. Well, that's an actual thing, like the an 8 ball. So like they've done that with Michael, but like oh well.
And then, of course, I think Resurrection had the best mask of that era. Too bad the movie itself was a little all over the place.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Although you gotta admit, though, probably the only moments worth seeing were the opening with Laurie's last stand against Michael and See You in Hell.
Yeah, I guess you could watch it just for that and then say, well, that's it. Halloween's over. There's nothing else going on here.
Because I remember me and you were watching Resurrection and thought, and you knew it was bad. I didn't know it was bad. And I'm all telling you, oh, this ain't so bad so far. And you're all, just wait.
And then we go to the streaming like reality show, and that probably hits you hard. It's like, oh
I
no.
think between me and you, I enjoyed the film more than you did, mostly because I was laughing at your reactions and grumblings throughout the movie. But what was funny was that bit when Michael teleports behind him, and you had the perfectly timed, "Hey guys, what are we whispering about?" And just that'll always make us laugh.
Yeah. That
See,
the
bad horror films can still be fun if you watch them with good friends.
yeah. So actually, so it's bad films. I actually argued that apart from Scream, which I don't think is like a complete dud in its entire franchise, like even its TV series, I hear it's like pretty good. I feel that the Nightmare on Elm Street, for even as far bad as it goes, like it still manages to hit the right marks for me.
I still think, yeah, you can argue the weakest of the whole group is probably Freddy's Dead, and that still has some enjoyment in it.
Yeah, but even that has some parts, mostly because like the actors they choose to play the kids actually feel genuine. Like, yeah, you could argue the face like, well, maybe they're a little bit older than teenagers. Like, yeah, but there's you can still buy that they're being friends among each other. Like, you have like personalities without being overt about like telling their whole entire backstory in one go.
So, in your opinion, what's the better sequel besides Dream Warriors?
Besides Dream Warriors and New Nightmare, I'd have to say four, honestly.
Yeah, that's Dream Master or Dream? Yeah, Dream Master, right?
Yeah, this is Dream Master that introducing Alice.
Who is
And
a very great protagonist and also has some of the more inventive kills of the series. I mean, my favorite one being you can check in, but you can't check out. That's always a good scene.
yeah,
Also,
us CF enthusiasts kind of like have a little bit of gleeful nihilism on that one.
on top of that, there's also probably of all the deaths, quote unquote deaths Freddy has suffered, I think four has my favorite demise, where the souls are freed and literally rip them apart as they fly out of them. That's like that always stuck with me
Yeah,
as a
like
kid.
Remy had the right idea. It's like, oh well, all the monsters like always tend to be killed from like something external. It's like outward. But what if it was something inward that destroyed them? And like I argue, it's like, well, is that a point? There's literally no way I could ever see Freddy getting like completely put down for good, other than this. And
And
I could say that being unbirthed in Part Five Dream Child might have some merits that go, yeah, but like only three souls that just put him into that position. That's not really as impressive as like all those souls that he's killed over the years, like both living and dead in his lifetime, completely just going out and say, you know what? No, we've had enough.
would you like to imagine Nancy was one of those?
I don't think Nancy was actually even in one of those.
Oh no, no, no. She died a noble death when she sacrificed herself in three, which was
Yeah,
surprising.
yeah. Plus, Patricia's character, I forget her name. Why am I forgetting her name? Whatever. The other main lead in Dream Warriors promised to dream her into a beautiful dream, which, like, the franchise kind of like translates to, oh, she'll become like a good version of Freddy. It's like she'll have like living dominion in the dream world. There's like,
Well, I mean,
okay, well, you got good merit on that idea, but you kind of squandered its like potential.
that's not the first time these horror film sequels have done that. I mean, Halloween 4's ending. Anybody? That would have been crazy if
Oh,
they,
that one pisses me off so bad.
because that was such a great like, wow, where are they gonna go with this? And you go to five and go, you're gonna do absolutely nothing with that. Okay, like guys, your next storyline, it's right there. Come, guys, come on. No, no, you're not gonna take this ball. No, no, you're not taking the ball. I fuck it, right?
Like even Friday the 13th managed to say, okay, well, we'll at least try one movie to have someone else be the killer and just see if it goes anywhere or not. Friday the 13th at least tried. How many just teased that and then went, that suddenly I'm getting cold feet. Let's just bring Michael back just to be
Yeah,
safe.
yeah. It's on top of that. I imagine if Friday the 13th 6 actually followed through on the implications of the New Blood. I think the only reason the New Blood, New Beginning wasn't accepted was because the movie was so backlash. They thought, let's just kind of jump over it. So
Which is
you can,
funny considering that that movie of all Friday movies has like the biggest body count you could possibly ever see in one movie. Like,
yeah, pretty. I mean, the MPA really hated that one too, if I remember.
yeah.
Like they hated all of them, but that one in particular, they're thinking like, Jesus. And then, of course, the one that got cut to hell the most was actually Seven, Kane's debut.
Uh, like, come on, like that's by like a party favor. It's like you can't let us have that one, guys. Come on.
But yeah, um, okay. So I find it funny we're jumping all over the place with our favorite slashers. But going to my thing, it was our favorite slashers were like, you got Jason in his hockey mask, Michael in his William Shatner mask, Ghostface with the fantastic face mask, the peanut-eyed ghost as they call it. Ghostface itself, it's now called the Ghostface. But like those, Pinhead and his needle. Like, there's just so many iconic monsters out there. Even some like urban legend was that like work out really well, like the Candyman by Tony Todd with those bees and that bloody hook.
Oh shit, we were robbed of seeing a Candyman movie this year too. Fuck you, 2020.
But yeah, I mean, it's very funny how I brought up horror and comedy always going in tandem because you got your comedic horror films like the Evil Dead movies, which you'll be screaming at the carnage on screen 1 second and laughing 1 second later because Bruce Campbell's just a funny guy.
Oh yeah, especially that infamous like laughing house scene where like Ash all that happens is Ash just falls down like a chair, it breaks down on him, and suddenly the mounted deer just looks demonic and just turns his head and starts cackling, and it's like an infectious laughter runs across the entire house. Like even Ash laughs, and every time I watch the movie, I end up laughing along with it because it's fucking ludicrous. It's like it just goes on and on. You just realize, what the? This is fucking crazy.
I hope Sam Raimi puts some of that comedic horror into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
I mean, I would be disappointed if he didn't. I mean, he managed to at least slip in that Birth of Doctor Octopus like horror with his little touch.
I mean, and you know, a funny thing about I read a book, and a funny thing about all these horror guys is you see their work as some of the most graphic, disgusting, or horrific, brutal, aggressive shit you've ever seen on screen. And when you meet the person, they are the most nicest, saintly, like good Catholic boys. Like Sam and Wes Craven were both raised Catholic from their upbringings. It's so funny when you see them and you see like they're the most pleasant people. Like if you see Wes in interviews, he seems like a shy, introverted, but good kind of guy. When you see Wes like looking down and smiling, saying, "Well, I think," like, he
But
seems like such.
you want to know how far like Wes was a nice guy? His day-to-day hobby, anytime that he could possibly find a way to do, was bird watching.
Oh my goodness, that's so sweet. And Sam Raimi mentioned in the book that uh, he's not, even though he has a lot of violence in this movie, he himself is not a violent person, and that every time he finds a spider in his house, he'll get a cup and a card or whatever and take the spider out. He did joke say if the spider gets anywhere near his food, though, all bets are off.
Well, we definitely fair on that one.
But yeah, like it's so funny. You read about some of these guys, like you see Robert Englund laughing it up and slashing teens left and right, but you see him in person, he's like, he was the nice alien in V for crying out loud. He was the good guy in something else. So it's like,
And now we've typecast him to the point where he got to direct his own horror movie, 9760 Evil, and was even the voice of villains like Vulture in Spectacular Spider-Man, and even fucking Scarecrow in Injustice 2.
yeah. So I just find it funny. Yeah, every now and then you will find someone who does this horror stuff and they're kind of a little messed up. You're like, you're up there. Giger was kind of one of those people, but he didn't see them as horror. It was more of this beautiful but erotic. You got the alien from that for crying out loud. And he got no. He was a nice person too. I heard, even though he was a little weird. That's all. He was just weird. That was his only crime. I mean, he dressed all in black. He had a soft voice like Peter Lorre for crying out loud. So everyone on Alien joked how nobody wanted to even, like when he was like, is he going to show up here? And if he does show up, do we even want to be near him? But he was nice from I heard, very polite. And I just find that funny because you don't have to be messed up to create.
Like one of the best like shy persons you could possibly meet was Anthony Perkins. I read it up.
Yeah, he was a nice chap, but he did play that good little boy way too well on Psycho.
You all go a little mad sometimes, don't you?
Oh yeah, I remember even Billy Loomis had to quote that, didn't he?
Yep.
I love that. Yeah. Well, even Skeet Ulrich, he seemed like a stand-up guy, and he gets to play a dick like Billy. It's so funny. And every now and then you'll see someone who actually is a jerk, but it's so funny. You meet some of these people, and you go, "Wow, you're like Kevin Peter Hall. He plays Bigfoot, and he played the Predator in Predators 1 and 2 before he was passing, and he was such a funny, well-spirited guy. And here he is playing these 7-foot creature that can rip your spine out.
Oh, fucking Matthew Lillard. Of all things.
Oh, see Shaggy for crying out loud.
It's a scream, baby.
I,
The, the dude can have like a complete psychotic look to his face, but like the dude's probably like a huggable teddy bear.
well, I mean, the guy did play Shaggy for a long time. Like not just on this big screen, but also as the voice for a long time.
But yeah, he was.
So I mean, I do love. Speaking of Stu, I love that bit all the time. Like I love that bit when Billy Skeet Ulrich's hands are too slippery from the corn syrup, so it slips and it hits him, and he improv and cue.
Oh, hit me with the fuck, Dick.
Or that other one too with the. You didn't just call the police, did you? You bet your sorry ass I just did. Oh no, my mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me. He's so lovable that you can't hate him for being in on this with Billy. I'm like,
what else? What other actors can we think of? It honestly, it's so funny that like people look at these horror movies and think, "Wow, you've got to be the most demented, deranged person to really like all this stuff." And then once you get to know these people, like, how have I been so wrong in my life? What preconceived notions I had to think that like these nice people couldn't possibly be able to pull off like horror.
because we like being scared. That's the thing. People, even though I mean, why do you think we do horror games, roller coasters? I mean, we like to have that small brush with a possible demise and get off the other side and think, oh, the good thing about movies is it's a contained environment. So even if it ain't you, you kind of project yourself like, oh, I'm like that guy, and oh, that guy just died. So, like, it's just that's how I see it. It's like we kind of, even some of us who say we don't like being scared kind of have a small primal instinct to kind of seek out fear and conquer it. What did you say?
Huh? Oh, sorry, I got a little distracted. I was typing a little bit.
Yeah, like I'm saying, like I don't know. It's so funny though when we kind of like, even those of us who say we don't like scary stuff kind of have a small attraction toward that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, that's why we do Halloween and we do costumes like zombies and vampires and streaking ghosts, because that's kind of not only is a tradition, we kind of have a like feeling a brush with that. And or another fun of Halloween and dressing up is being something you're not. If you're the usual shy introvert guy, but you get to make an impressive werewolf makeup, you think, well, this is more me. People and people like it for that. Like, uh, I used to dress up as Darth Vader a lot for Halloween, and I would try to narrow that character so down, and people would give me props as a kid, like just seeing like, hey, that Vader over there is actually pretty good. So like that feeling of that, because I'm nothing like Darth Vader if you ever know me. So but just to get the chance to wear that mask and be him for like a while, you're like it takes you. Same thing when you want to be a creature from the Black Lagoon or a vampire. You just think, oh, it's fun to be that for a while.
Yeah. But it is kind of fun to know that horror is able to still seep in to us even when we're kids, because like most of our favorite like TV shows or cartoons we grow up tend to try to dip their toes just a little bit into horror stuff, but say, hey, if you kind of like this stuff, there's this whole huge genre that's waiting for you.
And we learn more types of horror as we grow. Like we have our basic scary horror, like the monsters, like the werewolves and Frankenstein's. Then you get to complex horror a little bit, like a little more real, like the serial killers, like Psycho and Scream. And then you get to a lot more,
Or
you
like
know,
really, really out there, really creative, macabre stuff like Creep Show or The Blob or something like that.
yeah. There's multi layers, even a sort of real world horror when you get stuff like, even you could argue No Country for Old Men is sort of a horror film with that brutal, harsh real world that it shows, especially with a
Yeah,
guy like Anton Chigurh played by Javier Bardem. What's the
yeah.
most you What's the most you ever lost in a coin toss? Like that's
Yeah,
a tense scene right there.
yeah. I think the closest that we ever get to a movie like that was recently with the Joker movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So the fact that the horror comes in all kinds of forms. You got your existential horror, like finding a creature from the beyond, like in The Thing, or Poltergeist. You get your spiritual horror with stuff like possession and demons, like The Exorcist, stuff like that. You in Amityville, you get your external threats, like your monsters, like your Bigfoots, your aliens, your predators. It's just
Or
it's
you get
such a
giant, like out there monsters like kaiju, like Godzilla or King Kong or Gamera, or like.
because people seem to forget that those monsters of the 50s and stuff were addressing a horror like nuclear horror. Godzilla, Gojira itself is definitely a horror film if you look at it from that lens of seeing basically an atomic explosion happen in slow motion and this creature at the heart of it.
Like, I think the part that really sold me on it was like this woman huddling with her two children, just saying, "We'll be seeing Daddy soon. Just another minute. Just another minute. We'll be seeing Daddy soon. I
Yeah,
promise."
and you go like, damn, like that's like everyone's saying dumb movie with rubber suit guys. I haven't seen that one obviously, so okay.
Oh,
But yeah,
not to mention whenever they show people like falling down from the reactive breath that hits us, like,
and
and
it's
they
not
also
like
show of how like that breath alone touching like metal or wires, anything will just melt down, and you can already your brain's already imagining what's going on with the people that are just hit immediately with that.
yeah, and sad thing is, some of them don't die immediately from that. They'll be suffering radiation poisoning for the rest of their lives. That's like what the real bomb did. So there's all kinds of horror that you could find that will suit your need. Like you have your fun horror, like Goosebumps, like the books or the films or the TV show Goosebumps. It's scary, but it's scary and fun at the same time. You have your dark but fun horror, also like the Roald Dahl stuff. Like you could argue what happens in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book is quite horrific, but also
Well,
quite
also
fun.
there's fucking intense tunnel scenes. I always laugh at like the reason for why they put it is like, oh well, we gotta show that this place is kind of weird and not safe. Really, it's like something really weird going on here. It's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. Sure, things sure are going weird here.
Another good Roald Dahl story that's pretty deep in horror but also fun is The Witches, which also got its most recent adaptation by Robert Zemeckis, starring Anne Hathaway, put on HBO Max.
I also argue that Tim Burton is a pretty good de facto to go to like be your gateway to horror. Like,
Especially
yeah,
with
you
Beetlejuice.
got Danny Elfman music stuff, but I even like point out in like my list of top directors for horror is that Tim Burton is not afraid to go to the concept of death. Like, he will not go skirting around it. He's putting the concept of death right in front of your face, is showing that there's like heavy implications.
Well, even
In
like Mars
like
Attacks had.
something like, yeah, like in something like Beetlejuice, or like even like Corpse Bride of all things.
Wait, but it's funny is Mars Attacks has quite the high body count when I think about it, of all the films Tim Burton's done.
Man, I gotta see that one.
Yeah. Also, I mean, not just a high body count, a high body count with actual star names attached to those body counts. Like a lot of the big stars you see on that poster get wiped.
Well, I guess you wanted to go there to see them. Well, you get your money's worth, and then you get to see them like bite it.
Exactly, like crushed by globes, uh, gigantic mechs, laser beamed to death. That's such a fun movie.
Uh,
Also,
but I want to see like those Martians go up against something like the killer clowns from outer space. Like, I
oh,
want to see how that.
there's a fun, another fun gateway to horror that's PG-13, oddly enough, but still pushes that PG-13.
What? You're shitting me, right?
It's
There's no way
PG-13.
that can be PG-13. Hang on, I got stacked in my movie stack here. Let's see here. Good God. PG-13. Really? We call that PG-13. That's the most PG-13 I've ever seen. And again, this was the '80s where PG-13 actually meant something.
Speaking
And
of,
wasn't just excuse of like, oh, let's show horror, but like make sure we have our target demographic audience brought in.
actually, you know another good PG-13 horror film from that era? Poltergeist by Tobe Hooper.
Yeah, that actually wait, wasn't that one PG? I think it was a
13.
little that was no. That was a little bit earlier before I decided, okay, like Temple of Doom kind of spooked a lot of people. Let's actually make PG-13.
Well, let me take a look real quick. Internet, you're useful.
I have it right here. So you want to
Oh,
camera
it is PG. Oh. But
right
the
there?
sequels were PG-13. My bad.
PG, motherfucker.
But yeah, speaking of that too, also, funny we mentioned that because uh, horror really seeped itself into even adventures you wouldn't expect it, like the Indiana Jones movies. Like, but
Even this, especially the ending of the first movie, it's like
yikes! Just yikes! It's
I agree with the Unusual Suspect. I would kind of hesitate to even show that to my kids until they were like, I don't know, 9, where they would
this,
actually kind of understand the concept of like evil getting like its just rewards.
same thing too with Last Crusade with the failed choosing poorly. That one scared me as a kid, actually.
And then I think also like the attempts to pass the guard where they like, okay, dude, just go in there and see if you can manage to get farther than the last guy. And I think you see like one of their heads like rolling off.
Oh, on
Because
top of
like,
that,
especially because of the first trap, especially.
and then also in the first Indiana Jones, when a rival was ahead of him, and then they find that rival's body skewered on one of the traps. That was Alfred Molina screaming was pretty. Oh, Alfred Molina with all those spiders on his back.
I gotta agree with Unusual Suspect again. It's like I would like to think that they had to get Alfred a little bit high to like get like cool down the effect like, oh, I have tarantulas on my back. That's cool.
Well, yeah, like yeah. Oh, but it's so funny. I would love to see.
I'm sorry. I'm just left with the irony that Alfred's first on-screen role involved him having spiders on his back, and he would eventually have to deal with spiders again in his
Yeah,
life. Spider-Man. Oh my god. Everything's done full circle.
and then I would love to see Steven Spielberg attempt to. You know what's funny? He did have a plan for a straight horror film back in the mid '80s called Night Skies, where it would be a family being terrorized by these aliens that mutilate their cattle and stuff. And there was like a good alien that became friends with the boy that ended up spinning off eventually and became E.T. And the terrorized family ended up moving into Poltergeist. But he wanted to make a horror film called Night Skies, which is like I made the awe-inspiring alien movie with Close Encounters. Now let me go ahead and make the horror film of aliens with Night Skies, and
Oh,
things kind of
oh my god. Toby Hooper was also a good guy too. It's like behind the scenes of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, like one of the actors is like, okay, that like 12 takes for like this simple scene of like him attacking someone with a hammer, and just listening to all the different funny quotes of him, and like, okay, one more time, like, Toby, am I doing something wrong here? Like, oh hell no, man, I'm just having fun watching you.
yeah. Toby was a good guy. Oh, you know who's another guy who's great at that, where he has some of the most out there shit. He's pretty dark, but he's also pretty funny and personable. Guillermo del Toro.
Oh
Just
yeah. Oh,
you see,
actually, good news. I'm not sure if you actually heard, but it you know how he's always been longing to get like a true haunted mansion movie going off the ground,
uh-huh.
like finally greenlit. Like I think it was like a month or two ago.
But yeah, Del Toro. I love that guy. His works always go into like different genres, like they're horror, fantasy, fun adventure. Like his Hellboy movies have like horror, adventure, and comedy all rolled into one. Pacific Rim is mostly a kaiju film, but there's some elements of comedic horror, like when the newborn baby eats Ron Perlman, and he cuts his way out of it later.
Yeah, and he didn't have like a long term like effect on it too much at a point. He did manage to have a certain like spark in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I think he was the one who was added. It's like, dude, if we don't try to make the monsters look exactly like how they are in the animated, like
In the
the
book,
illustrated books, there's no point in this. Like, you might as well just go home and like pack it up.
I heard that's another good movie for gateway horror for kids, like older kids. Like that's their Goosebumps is Alone in the Dark movie. I heard it's actually pretty like intense for a kids movie, quote unquote.
Yeah, it kind of left me on nerve when I was watching it. Like, especially with some of the monsters that were like, I, I think the one that messed me up the most was probably the one that's the missing toe.
Oh God, that was always my scary story from back in the day.
Well, you better be prepared to have like being standing near a toilet when that happens, because that is really intense shit.
Yeah, but and people like to say horror has its rises and low points, and I think we're on a pretty good uptick right now. Wouldn't you say?
I was actually planning. I'm probably still gonna pull it off as a top list of like the 2010s horror, because like at a point in like the early 2000s, like the whole 2000s decade, that was like a huge nosedive decline for horror, because like they were trying to go too much lean towards CGI. It's like, hey, look, we can finally make effects, like, and we can like save money on it, and like
Or
only a few
go
like Final Destination and Saw would be standouts, but even they would fall victim to like the CGI like.
or they would go way too the mid 2000s early 2000s would go way too violent where it's not even fun anymore. You're just watching sick gore and it stopped being fun for a while. Like
Uh,
the Hills have like the Hills Have Eyes movies at remakes. They say if you want to watch those, watch the originals. The remakes are just too carnage. Like Hostel, like Saw. You know, funny Saw gets a bad rep for being like a hyper violent series, but if you look at
yeah,
that
even
first
I even thought it was like hyper violent, like being like the outside looking in kind of thing. But when you actually watch it, like there's actually like a method to the madness of the whole thing.
like
Like,
Saw One is
like
relative.
first of all, like all this like terrible shit going on is happening to terrible people.
Like
So
the only death that you could say went to like graphic in Saw One is not even fully on screen, and that's when the cop accidentally triggers a shotgun trap.
oof, yeah.
But yeah, so I just but yeah, the mid 2000s and early 2000s, you saw like a huge like you thought the 80s was gory. The early 2000s were determined to say those were bedwetters compared to us, and it stopped being reasonable and just became, dude, you're just doing gore for gore's sake. It stopped being fun like a long time ago.
Yeah. They can only
I
hope
will.
that 20th decade is going to offer some more horror, because we're already having like delayed titles that already have enough promise for it. So, and I hear that Invisible Man actually turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, and
I
then we
mean,
have
it's taking the old Invisible Man concept, but using it in a stalker like boyfriend
psychological
kind of,
way. Mhm.
yeah, a psychological stalker thing. Which, like, even looking at it, it's like, huh, why didn't anyone else think about doing this?
Hollow Man.
Yeah, but nobody really like remembers that anymore.
Kevin Bacon. It always ties back to Kevin Bacon somehow, who was also in Friday the 13th.
Yeah, but if you ever ask him, he would never say that he appeared in Friday the 13th first. He'll always say he appeared in Diner first. It's like, yeah, no, try again, asshole. You appeared in Friday the 13th and got your neck skewered on the bed.
And well, at least Johnny Depp ain't too shy about admitting he was in Wes's film not a long time ago. I still remember that story for New Nightmare where Wes Craven thought to contact Johnny for a cameo at the funeral, but he said he was such a big star, he was just so intimidated, he didn't even think to ask him. And when Johnny had found out, he's all, "Dude, of course I would have done it. I would have,"
Uh,
because Johnny admitted, that movie put him on the path. I mean, he owes a lot to Wes as a guy. I mean, he wouldn't do it just for the movie. He would do it just for Wes because he was such a good buddy with him. He thought in the end, like, dude, you could have just asked. I would have loved to have been in there. So, yeah, Wes, rest in peace. You definitely brought an impact to the world.
yeah, yeah. Going back to Scream, you know what was fucked up is that
Eh.
the day he died, before it happened, I think, and before anyone knew, for some reason, I decided just like, you know what, I think I'll just watch all the Scream movies back to back. I also think that the Scream TV show is starting, and the YouTube channel kind of put the first one out for free for everyone to watch. The first episode, I mean. Um, and yeah, it was just watching it. It's like never once did I thought I should do. Oh, Wes Craven passed away, and so immediately after that, I knew that the only way to grieve was to watch New Nightmare.
On top of that, the episode that Sunday that showed for the Scream series on MTV did have a hasty in memoriam of Wes. In fact, sad to bring it up again. It's very similar to how when Chadwick passed away, Chadwick Boseman passed away this year. That was unexpected. So I remember that same reaction when Wes passed away. You told me, dude, he's gone. Wes is gone. Like who? Craven. And you sent me the news. Like I'm like, holy shit, he died.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see. Toby Hooper's also rest. I think we still have Sam Raimi as one of the old guards. Still, I think we still have.
Remember was gone, and he was the big old teddy bear too.
We still have Clive Revell strangely enough, the guy who did not Clive Revell, I mean Barker, Baker Barker, Pinhead creator.
Oh shit! Clive Barker's still around? I
Yes,
thought
he
he was
is.
dead.
He's still around. Uh, and I think aren't they doing a new Hellraiser remake soon?
I honestly don't even know. That series has been through a lot of facelifts. Like I don't even know if they're even bothering to do that. Let me
Uh,
check.
Remember when Pinhead was supposed to cameo in the ending of Freddy vs. Jason, but due to rights issues, that never happened?
Gentlemen, what seems to be the problem?
Oh, watch Mortal Kombat put Pinhead in a future game.
Let me see here. Future. Let's see here. After a successful Halloween sequel, Gary Barber announced Spyglass Media Group would be delivering a new remake of Hellraiser, written, co-produced by David S. Goyer. Oh, God, yes,
Ooh,
right.
David S. Goyer is a two-sided coin. On one hand, he gives us great stuff like The Dark Knight and Batman. On the other hand, he gives us stuff like Blade Trinity and stuff like that.
Wait. Okay, so that was in back in May 2019. April 2020, directors for direct the remake. And later that same month, HBO was announced to develop a Hellraiser television series that would serve as an elevated continuation expansion of this mythology with Mark Verheiden and Michael Dougherty.
Ooh,
Right?
Verhaden, he's the one who wrote The Mask and AVP, the original comic. That's a good name. Mark Verhaden.
And Michael Dougherty like needs no introduction. Like uh, horror
Trick or
comics,
Treat.
Krampus, Trick or Treat, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. You have my full attention on that one.
Funny enough, I think Godzilla King of the Monsters is what I would put at the bottom of the totem pole of stuff he's done. And I'm a Godzilla fan. I mean, because I really liked what he did with Krampus. I got to see the rest of Trick or Treat, to be honest. But Michael Dougherty, he also was responsible for scripts on Smallville, and that is one of my favorite Superman shows. So, yep, full support from here, too. Here's a stupid question. What director who doesn't normally do horror would you like to imagine a horror film from?
Hmm. You know what? Fuck it. Let's just see Michael Bay take on a horror movie.
People will say, "Isn't that what the Platinum Doom movies are?" No, that was Jonathan Despiel, or Marcus Despiel or Jonathan Libsman who directed those, not Bay himself.
There gotta
I
be
think
something off the wall insane for someone like him.
actually you can kind of see some of the horror in some of the scenes he does in Transformers. Like I think, like the frenzy scenes or the ravage scenes, those are very horrific. Um, Hell, if you remember, Revenge of the Fallen was advertised almost like a freaking horror film. That one, that first teaser for Revenge of the Fallen looks like Transformers meets like it's All Hope Is Lost horror right there.
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe who else? Brad Bird. I want to see Brad Bird do a horror movie.
Ooh, that'd be great too. Me, I think I would like to see Ryan Johnson's take on a straight horror film. He's got interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think it count Knives Out as a horror movie. It's like a murder mystery, I guess.
It's more like Clue than Psycho.
Yeah, but even Clue kind of got a little bit of horror like mood, especially with like the ambiance of the setting and like the way that all the people got murdered in that movie.
Yeah, the dancing telegram girl always makes me laugh.
I am your singing telegram. Boom!
Bang!
Ah.
Now, what about a Christopher Nolan straight horror film? Because he kind of got scary with Batman Begins, with the whole topic being fear.
Dark Knight was scary. But
Yes, it was. I'll be with you there.
don't look at me straight in the face and say it wasn't scary, especially when the Joker like when they told Heath Ledger, okay, try to do your own like message to the Batman. Let's see what you can come up with.
That was freaky.
And then 1 week later, well, guys, what do you think? Before he tries to suggest something else.
They actually said that they liked that what he did with that first one. That they let him do all his own, like that one where the guy's upside down. That was all Heath directing that one. Oh, what about let's see, another guy that does other stuff that would do horror. Let's see, I think he already did one technically. Denis Villeneuve. Let's see. Well, we've seen Ridley do horror plenty of times, actually. He hasn't done a good one since, but still. Um, I don't know. There's just so much. Zack Snyder doing a straight horror film.
Already did it.
Oh yeah, he's doing Army of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead. I forgot that was his debut. Crap. The
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead.
It's one of the few times a remake is like, no, there's no way you should remake that. Then one screen later, it's like, huh, holy shit, that was actually kind of pretty awesome. Like the original though.
But yeah, so that's another good film, Dawn of the Dead. I think we could just go on and on about horror and other stuff like so. Halloween traditions. Is there any Halloween traditions you like to do?
I think you pretty much know what I'm currently doing right now.
Oh, that would be for those of you who know that he has an artist page where he writes Audition art. He likes to do what he likes to call Terrorween. I believe he's on the 8th iteration at this point, 8 years running.
Yes, Terrorween 8 screamed in Terrorvision.
That's great.
It's supposed to be themed after like a double feature at a drive-in under new management. So it's like two original stories. One is a sequel from a previous year with witch hunters going against the voodoo priestess now, and also a completely original story. Me trying to do a slasher involving a shapeshifter villain of all things. So
yeah, there's a lot.
mostly like animal based.
Ah, so you could say it was a bear mauling, and this was no bear mauling.
Bear falling, architect, you name it, that's probably going to be in there.
Ah, yeah. Oh, there's another good horror film that people don't really think of as horror. Oh, so Steven Spielberg did do a straight horror film, technically. Jaws.
Yeah. Well, it was a horror movie, then it turned into an adventure movie.
And then went back to horror in the end.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, I just remembered another guy we lost from horror a long time ago. George Romero.
Well, no, I already mentioned that one.
Oh, I must have misheard it. But yeah, his
He
dead
was,
movies were.
he was like a big old teddy bear.
Oh,
Also, it
definitely.
me a little bit because he was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I live like almost like an hour or two drive away from Pittsburgh.
On top of that, all his dead films were filmed in Pennsylvania. So that's like a that's like an export for you guys right there. That and
Plus,
Rocky.
my Pittsburgh is literally called the zombie capital of the world, and it's all thanks to Georgie Boy.
Uh, Oh, I just remembered another thing. The It movies. I don't know. I'm thinking of those all the time. You saying Georgie made me think of Bill Skarsgård saying Georgie, and that made me think of the recent It movies.
Hey there, Georgie.
Oh God, that Pennywise, quite the interesting fella.
Yeah,
Mm.
we all thought that there was no way he was good top Tim Curry. I guess we were just kind of drinking the same Kool Aid where we thought there was no way Heath was good top Jack Nicholson for Joker. But like, you just never doubt the clown actors.
People want to typecast that poor guy as the Joker. Anyway, so by the way, another thing to mention. What was probably the most scariest thing and a thing you didn't expect to be scary at all? Like it was just like it's an innocuous thing. Like it's not really horror related, but something happens in it that was so scary. You go like, Jesus, that was scary.
That's a good question. I need to really think of that one. Um. Oh, the Spider-Man Far From Home. Whenever Mysterio's going, putting Peter through the ringer of his illusions, and then all of a sudden, zombie Tony Stark.
Oh
Like,
yes, that.
what the fuck? We just saw him have this like emotional sacrifice in Endgame, and you're just throwing this in our face.
Yep. Oh, another thing that on that level for me would probably be Dark Knight. Oh, now this one also wasn't a horror film, but it did jump me. It's a cheap jump scare, but it's
Oh,
effective.
I know
It's
what you're talking about. I know what you're fucking talking about, but just go ahead and describe it.
the VVS dream where after Bruce has a serious conversation with Alfred, or something happens, we hear that world engine sound, and Bruce is going to drop flowers off at the mausoleum where Martha and Thomas Wayne are buried. He gets near when it starts bleeding, and out of nowhere comes this bat-like creature that comes out and bites his neck. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, where'd that come from?
Well, we had to find some way to fit Man-Bat into one of these movies, I guess.
Yeah, and also another one where it's like Toy Story, the Toy Story 2, a lot of Toy Story, but Toy Story 2 especially, the dream where Woody's feels like he's been up there for a while. Andy comes back and discards him, and like that's a pretty scary scene for a
Yeah,
non-horror.
that by discarded uh, limb attachments.
Yeah, and then another one where it's not horror at all, but you go, Jesus Christ, was that was another one. Um, I mean, there's a couple, but it's so funny when you run into a movie where it's not even horror related. Oh, okay, this kind of counts. People might say it doesn't, but I think it counts. Is the way Rita corners one of the Rangers in the remake of 2017 Power Rangers, where she's quite a basically a horror figure, a witch, basically.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then that scene ends with the infamous Krispy Kreme revelation.
oh yes, yes, yeah. But oh, and then
Shit for that. It's like I think I would like to think that's just like it's a joke. This huge powerful thing just sitting underneath like an everyday like donut shop.
okay, now this ain't a non-horror film, but I thought this was also a pretty effective scene. Was the hammer pate scene in Prometheus, where the little worms have mutated into these cobra-like creatures and breaks the guy's arm before going and using the bone to cut the suit and go into the suit and impregnate his mouth. Although the worst scene than that was the whole surgery sequence. Just that alone, I'm going, good God, really? I know you're trying not to do a chest scene, but oh my goodness. People give Prometheus a lot of crap too. Oh, now here's a film that's kind of horrific, and it's not even a horror film.
Which
Whiplash with J.K. Simmons and Miles Teller.
never seen it.
Trust me, that's the drummer boy one where he's getting pushed very hard by this abusive music teacher played by J.K. Simmons, who got an award for that, might I add. But yeah, there's some stuff where you're thinking, good God, that's horrific. Like not from a horror point of view, but I mean, it's just closest one to that was probably King of Comedy, which was an inspiration for Joker, starring Robert De Niro, I might add. That's a good one. But yeah, anyway, back to Halloween traditions. We're going all over, but the Halloween traditions that you do. So I believe you also do the traditional pumpkin stuff whenever you get the chance.
No, yeah, we go out to this cornfield, and it also houses a pumpkin patch. And we like pick our pumpkins out fresh from the patch, and we sometimes pick out stencil designs to cut them out too. Um, this year, my brother went with doing the Doomslayer symbol from the reboot games, and I decided for the 40th anniversary for Friday the 13th to do Jason. And I know you're thinking, oh, so you did the mask this fall. I was gonna go for the mask, then I saw this one stencil that had it. It looked like a still shot from one of the Friday movies. It's Jason on the side. He has his machete going up, but whenever the pumpkin lights up, it looks like it's a discolored still from a movie. It was honestly like a rare find to get that one. I'm kind of lucky to find that. And what else? Obviously, I watched all these horror movies. I also end up sleeping down in the basement just to kind of get myself in the mood to write. But
That's it.
I know a
Interesting.
lot of you think that I'm completely insane for wanting to sleep down in the basement, but there's just some kind of like a nice surreal kind of vacation kind of aspect to it, where you're just kind of away from your norm to be in a place where you can watch like monster movies like without interruption and all that.
Do you have a favorite like horror literature you like to read?
Horror literature. Uh, well, that's kind of hard. I don't really have a lot of horror books. I did manage to pick up the graphic novel for the Silver Eyes, the Five Nights at Freddy's book. That's pretty
Ooh.
good, honestly.
We picked up the graphic novel of this, I think the first one. That was Silver Eyes, I think, right?
Yep, that is. It's the Silver Eyes.
Oh, you
Uh,
know what else was horror that without being horror, but it does have horror in it? Some of the Animorphs books, like the full books inside it, like they have some, like when they get stuck in like mid-morph sometimes, it's like, good God.
oh yeah, we also just picked up the first graphic novel of Animorphs too. That actually that's one thing I should have picked that for like the one thing that was like, oh, I don't really think it's that horrific, and then I just realized, go, holy shit!
Because the
It was the ending of the first the evasion book
yes,
graphic
yes.
novel. So at the near end, they're going to this secret hideaway for like the antagonists, and at a point, the whole place burns down, and I noticed there's a lot of people that are like infected with the aliens or like victims. They're burning in the fire. And it's going,
Yikes.
this is a kid's book? What the
Well,
fuck?
the author did admit, the graphic novel adapter admitted he wanted to show a little more of the edge that was in the text that you had to describe it, but you could think, oh well, like she turns into an elephant and smashes a tax on it. Now, what would that actually look like? He says, I was actually surprised with some of the intensity they let me do in this book. He said,
Yeah, oh man, that scene was actually pretty awesome.
but yeah,
But yeah, like, it's funny because this and Silver Eyes almost kind of have the same type of style where, like, you think when they would adapt in graphic novel form that you would get like these clean designs, these characters, but like these characters kind of look like average, really, and I think that's kind of like the power. of it.
Or they can be so grungy and painted off like those Silent Hill comics.
Fucking comic. Although it can't really say like too much ill for it since the original creative mind tragically passed away like a few years ago, I think.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, oh, speaking of another horror tradition that you and I have is we watch uh, YouTube creators doing horror themed stuff like James Rolfe and his Monster Madness or his video game nerd episodes that deal with horror like Halloween and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, a newest one just came out today. It's a PlayStation horror game called Countdown Vampires. It's a riff off of Resident Evil, and like
Ooh.
wow. And I thought Evil Dead: Hail to the King was a fucking rip off of Evil Dead. This thing fucking takes the cake.
And then there's we also like Linkara, Louis Lovehoff from Top to Fourth Wall when he does his long
Long box
box.
and his horror mini sagas for 3 years he'll discuss horror like in comics. So for the first 3 years he did Silent Hill comics, and 3 years after that he did The Thing, quotations from another world, and then 3 years after that was the Nightmare on Elm Street ones. The year after that was the 10th anniversary, so it's kind of returned back to them, and then adding in the current one that's going on. It's the Hellraiser comics, and the Hellraiser comics is kind of surprised because as he mentions that unlike most of the other horror mediums, these comics, Hellraiser actually went off pretty unscathed for the most part.
And then that also reminds me about how he reviewed Evil Dead comics to go with the theme of one of them, and he brought up the famous Freddy versus Jason versus Ash comic, and its further sequel, which, oops, that's all I gotta say is oops.
Although I actually managed to grab a trade copy of Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. That pretty proud of that one.
That's
Even though
good.
it took almost like a fortune to get it, but fuck it, it's worth it.
Yeah. The only thing I take issue with is they dispatched the survivors of FVJ just for shock value in the opening. That's the only thing I take issue with that first comic. Other than that, it's solid.
Yeah, well, I mean, the original actors did originally sign on for that, so I mean, I guess they managed to read a little bit of the script. It said, "Yeah, well, I guess that happens."
Well, the girl playing Laurie made a joke about it in one of the documentaries, saying, "I thought Jason was on my side. You know, after what he kills me in the comic, F that. I'm Team Freddy then."
It's just funny to consider that Freddy actually haunted her entire childhood at that point. But I
So
guess
but because
but
she
I
made a
guess
whole
maybe,
thing about she made a joke about
yeah,
how the whole time like me and Jason we have a thing going on. I think he's the poor guy. I'd pull him out of the water and stuff like that. And then later they said nobody told him, and after a while down the line they brought up in the comics we actually killed the Laurie character, and then they cut back to her saying, "Wait, they killed me in the comic? Fuck that." But yeah, and I'm sure you like. Uh, have you ever seen any of Stephen King's novels? I know they're fat as hell, but have you read any of them?
I literally tried to read the Dark Tower books. I don't think I even started as like I was say, oh, I got that collected all these Dark Tower books. This is a Stephen King fan. Might as well get started. Like couldn't even start.
Wow.
I
Well,
why?
I think you might really get into his Pet Cemetery book.
Yeah, it's weird. I know Pet Cemetery is a classic for 80s fans, but like watch this. I just had this niggling feeling in the back of my head going, wait, I don't know. This doesn't really feel Stephen King-ish.
Huh. But yeah, I mean, he's done a lot of. I have a copy of It that I bought when It Chapter 2 is coming out, and I'm reading halfway through it. It is pretty effective, but it is a fat book. You really got to put time away for a Stephen King book.
Yeah, that and also it's got an infamous chapter in it.
Yeah. Well, we won't get into that here. Good thing the movies completely bypass that, but they also bypass the turtle. I know I won't shut up about the turtle, but they make a cute little nod to it, and that's it. But yeah, okay. So, what's your favorite
What about
Halloween
you? What
treat?
are your Halloween traditions?
Uh, Normally just dress up and go out, and when it wasn't going out, it was just handing stuff out and watching horror films. I'm kind of basic when it comes to my my traditions, actually. Although I did try to dabble into Terrorween for you, and I'm sorry I never got those out on time. I will eventually get. I don't want
Still,
those to disappear.
I'm still waiting.
Yeah, I won't let those disappear into the ether because they're such good ideas. I try to do the fun, this mysterious, the downright. I don't know if I can be scary because I don't know how. I don't even know
I
until I
definitely
do it.
I think definitely think you're on right path to do scary with the one where you're taking my character's younger sister and getting stalked by a killer clown.
Oh, that's the yeah. I think you did like the Diaries of Helena Hopkins prequel too. One of the stories, but that
Yeah,
but
yeah. I honestly thought it's like, oh, finally we're gonna get somewhere with this.
life
Like, 10
happened.
years later.
Life happened, like it always does. But yeah, oh, there's another horror movie as a kid that kind of, it was not even straight horror. It was more action, but it still freaked me out. Was the original, well, not original, the remake of The Mummy that was made in 1999, starring Brendan Fraser. That one kind of scared me at times.
Yeah, funny enough, it's not really actually a remake of the original Mummy. Like, it takes some cues from it, but I think watching Monster Madness, it pointed out that there's the Mummy movie that was definitely a little bit more action oriented
I
back
think it
then.
was one of the Hammer Mummy films. I think
I think it's like the
Karis.
Curse, Curse of the Mummy. I think.
Yeah, but I do like The Mummy because those effects blew my mind as a kid. And Imhotep is a scary mofo before he regenerates.
Yeah, I hate to be that person, but I take that Mummy movie over the Dark Universe one.
Although Princess Amunet was kind of cute because you got Sophia Buccelli playing her.
Cuteness can only get you so far.
I mean, I think they were doomed the minute they had Tom Cruise sign on because he was way too much for their paycheck. And if that was Tom Hiddleston, maybe. But he was
Honestly,
already
they
doing.
both gotten away with it if it was Tom Hiddleston. But the moment they were Tom Cruise, it's like, well, I guess you're just gonna have to be watching more of him trying to kill himself on a TV screen.
Like that plane stunt was actually him in a plane. When they go for zero gravity, that was a real stunt he did. The
Of course.
crash, yeah, the crash was added later, but I mean the whole where the plane goes for a second into zero gravity and he's flying. That's actually him doing it.
Actually, I think his agents have got to have like so many therapy sessions. Like,
They
I
have a
keep
lot of
keep
insurance
one
policies on him.
like I keep having nightmares, man. I keep thinking that one of these days he's gonna sign up for a space area and he's gonna go, I'm gonna actually be on a rocket ship and be on the outside of it.
But speaking of, another joke, like, who'd be great? Cruise, Hiddleston. Yeah, I was saying Cruise. We'll do Tom Cruise. But oh, speaking of Dark Universe, let's talk about that unfortunate, overlooked first half that was Dracula Untold, which is actually pretty damn good. I think people really don't give that one a fair shake.
Yeah. Although I do own it. That, that's that's the unfortunate thing for me. I have all these movies, I haven't even watched them.
Yeah, well, you do have a vampire of a job on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, horror games. I think I'm a big fan of the Resi series, of course. I'm making my way to Resident Evil 2 at a snail's pace, but I'm making my way through it.
I don't know if I should say I'm a fan of Resident Evil. It's like I love RE2 remake, but it's this one thing that just kind of like offsets me. Like, I can't finish the games with this one aspect of it that just like drives me insane every time
The
it gets
control?
added. No, not the controls. It's the giant spiders.
Oh yes, yes, yes. He was actually thankful that the RE2 remake decided to forego the spiders.
Yeah,
But
and
then
I also
Nemesis had
made
to
a
bring him
big.
back.
I what?
Nemesis brought them back, didn't it?
Well, that's what I thought, but then looking over, it's like they're not really giant spiders. They're just giant insect-like things, but
Although,
complicated.
although the first Resident Evil games, for some reason, even though they were PlayStation graphics, found a way to realistically animate spiders the size of horses. For crying out loud!
They don't even animate that right. I think that's what unnerves me. It's like you're trying to make these things look real, and you're just doing the complete opposite of that, and that just really unsettles me.
Same thing too. I think that's why I used to be scared of older horror films that use stop motion to get their things out, because that jerkiness made it more unnatural and more scary. Like there's a segment in an anthology series called Tales from the Hood, which was like the Black experience telling horror stories, and one of them dealt with this racist governor guy buying a mansion that used to be a plantation, where there's a painting of like all the emaciated slaves who had died, and the person who lived there had made like these dolls, these little dolls that would come to life and
Oh
were
no, I can already tell where this is going.
And so they come to life under stalking him. So I'm sure you, even if you haven't seen the movie, you probably heard about that.
Uh,
And they're stop.
I'm just so glad I'm not Megan hearing all this. I would probably have like, no, 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 not listening. La, la,
No,
la,
no,
la.
not even that. I think it's just one big fuck that. That's Megan. I mean,
Uh,
there's all.
but yeah, it's like the only Resident Evil games I ever played are like the rail shooter games, RE remake, and Resident Evil 7. Like I think that was like my biggest achievement. Like beating Resident Evil 7. It's the first mainline Resident Evil game, and I beat it from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. And then,
I definitely think that Luigi's Mansion is just as much a scary game because, like, let's admit it. You have these colorful, like, happy-go-lucky, bouncy, like, games, the Mario series. Now you're taking the side character Luigi and putting them in this big, scary ass mansion, and also adding in, oh, by the way, if you don't hurry your ass up, your brother is going to be doomed for all eternity behind a portrait from the vengeful King Boo. So get to it.
no pressure, huh? But yeah, and
It would
then
have been more scarier if they went with the original beta version where like it was all timed. Like if you didn't make it, you would get like a bad ending, like this dreary like Luigi face. That I'm sure it's a meme that's been circulating around the internet.
yes, it is. And that game is scary. Even the ghosts, even though they're colorful and a little poppy, they're kind of frightening. So like, there's these ghosts that will strangle you if you just shake your coins out. There's these ones that make these scared noises when they get sucked up. But of course, the cutest ghosts, surprisingly not, are the shy guys. When you take off their mask, they do this little and they disappear. I thought, oh, the shy guy. I kind of feel bad pulling off the shy guy mask.
Yeah, but the most annoying fuckers are the boos, especially when
Oh,
you're higher levels. Like you're just like they have no friction to them whenever you're sucking them, so they'll manage to phase through a wall and say, ugh.
oh, now there's another movie with horror elements. It's comedic, but it's still kind of horror. Is the Ghostbuster movies? I'm not a big fan of them, but I understand they're horror.
Oh, I agree with Linkara. The fact that this second one is like really more scarier in concept when you really think about it. It's all negative and angry emotions are literally feeding the ghosts and just twisting and mangling everything in New York.
Okay, that's probably going to be on the bingo card. A ghost explosion happening in 2020.
Well, that happened close to New Year's, so well, if we gotta go out, we might as well just go out with the vengeful ghost paintings, something like pink slime on us.
Yeah, but I was thinking about that, like, because negativity. I'm like, oh, there's a shit ton of that going around these days. But anyway, yeah, Luigi's Mansion is a good one. It's kind of scary a little bit, especially one thing that's it's quaint for some people, but I find it kind of scary even as an adult. It was kind of funny and scary was when you go into your first trap room and all the portraits start taunting you.
Yeah.
Oh, that damn baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when he shrinks you down in size and it just towers over you.
Damn.
Another horror game I like is Evil Within, or what I call
Ah.
it like experimental horror 101. But like, I mean, I like the first game. I only managed to begin on two, and I already saw the potential of what that one is. But I think at some point it's like, no, I actually have this other game I wanted to go. I'll just have to come up with it another time.
Oh, you know what's another good like a game that kind of scares at time? It's not meant to be scary. I mean, it's you're supposed to be. It's there's some horror elements, but it's supposed to be more of a Trump thriller, action ride. Is the original Doom games, but those can be kind of scary too.
Especially when you're going through areas where there's no lights and you hear enemy growls, and definitely when you're in a dark room and you're totally surrounded and you have nothing but like the flashes of your blasts and your muzzles. So,
Or when you're just
or
going
when you
along
get
on
fucking ambushed by like the Hellbringers or whatever they're called, Demonites.
the Barons of Hell.
Barons of Hell, the fucking Barons of Hell.
Yeah, when you hear
When
that
they
big
dropped them on us, I was like, fuck this noise, I'm out of here.
yeah, the minute you hear that magical noise, you're like, ah, fuck, they're nearby. The same thing too. If you suddenly hear a big war, you go, "Oh crap! There's a cyber demon in here too." Yeah, but
I've actually managed to want. I've been wanting, really wanting to start playing the Silent Hill games. Like I have 2 and 3 on hand, black labels, but I've never managed to start yet. I don't know why. Especially considering the fact that 2 literally is a standalone game. So
I actually have two on PS2. I haven't played it yet, but yeah.
yeah, it's literally the only way you could properly play this game. Don't fucking get the remake, the HD remaster, because they fucked it up.
Oh, you know what else? You wouldn't think it's scary, but it kind of is too. Is Resident Evil 4, especially that one where it's in the lightning storm and it's black, but then the only way to see the enemies is when the lightning flashes.
Wow, now I'm actually terrified to even continue that game, knowing that I'm gonna have to face that.
Of course, the most annoying level in the game is the maze, and you have these killer dogs with plagueis coming out of their back in a very cheap manner where you go like fuck when you run into them. It's more frustrating than scary. Oh, but I'm sure you heard about the most scariest enemy in Resident Evil 4, the Regenerators.
Yeah, I know about those.
Yeah, where they make that little hurried whispers and they're like a mile away, but then their spikes will like come out and then suck you back in.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not a horror game, but it does have horror elements, I think, for sure. The Mortal Kombat series, especially when it comes to Outworld.
Or the fact that like fucking Mortal Kombat X might as well have been like horror movies DLC the game.
Leatherface, Jason, Alien, Predator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Melina had a vampire skin in that one. I would
Yeah,
say that MK11.
bet you're really happy that MK11 will rectify having a severe lack of Melina in it.
I'm more happy for John Rambo joining the fight for some reason. I don't know why. That just tickles my fancy. But
It, it does make me worry that he's going to be mostly like a gun heavy guy, and it's just people are
have
going
you
to spam.
have you seen his trailer though? He's using mostly that knife
I'm
and
pretty
that
sure. I'm pretty sure at least one of his specials is going to involve his guns. So
it looks like one of his wake ups is. But Melina, yeah, I love that joke that they made when Aaron Black asked her, "How the heck did you come back?" And she's all, "A million souls cried for my return." I'm like, very, very
that's
cute,
fucking beautiful.
very cute. Nether realm. But yeah, even like the early MK games had some horror-esque elements, especially the fatalities. Like when I mean they're quaint now, but like Kano ripping out a heart, that's like oh how horrific, or pulling the whole skeleton out, stuff like that.
It's okay, there's definitely this one horror game that like everybody knows about, and it's like got a cult status that I want to play. It's the Eternal Darkness, and I have managed to like break my back over and find a good copy of that. Still haven't played it yet. I guess I'm just a little bit nervous because like I know at some point there's like the game just fucks with you a little bit, and it's like, is it really going to erase all my memory data if I play this? Just I don't know.
I find it funny that sometimes we're like we eat up this stuff. We're really into horror, but at the same time we're like, I don't know if I want to get that close to it yet. It's
Yeah,
funny,
like
but
yeah, it like me for example. I love going to spirit stores. I just can't stand going up to like the animatronics. Like I know that you can clearly see the plates where you can step on it and make them trigger, but I always don't like, especially with like jumping spiders or something that could end up grabbing your leg and just freaking you the fuck out. But I think this year just finally made me realize like, yeah, they definitely don't make animatronics to try to grab you. If they did, like they would have red flags going on.
by the
Especially,
way, it's kind of funny how we have these animatronics of like Jason or Reagan from The Exorcist, but we don't have an animatronic yet of Freddy Fazbear yet, as far as I know.
I think they kind of saved that for the movie.
Oh yeah, that's still a thing. With you got Scott Cawthorn doing the script. He's the creator of the games itself and all this lore, and you got Chris Columbus of Mrs. Doubtfire and Harry Potter fame directing. True, he had a hand in Pixels with Adam Sandler, but I put that more on Sandler than Columbus.
Yeah. Funny enough, that's the one horror movie that my brother said that he would be willing to actually go watch.
And the
It's,
big screen and everything.
what?
And the big screen and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another sci-fi horror film that works pretty well. That would be the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Donald Sutherland. That's a good one.
They actually remade that?
Yeah, there was a '50s one, but Joe Finney, and then there was the remake that was done with Leonard Nimoy and Donald Sutherland, and also Veronica Cartwright was in that. Lambert from Alien.
Shit, they actually got Nimoy to go through with this?
Yeah, it's
Script,
pretty good.
script, I would expect the script would probably be good if he said, yeah, you have my attention. I'll go with
Did
it.
I did I mention that it also has Jeff Goldblum in it?
God damn it. And like that, you fucking sold me.
Well, yeah. And the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers is up there along with remakes like The Blob and The Fly and The Thing. So give it a look if you haven't. And it's PG, believe it or not. All
Uh,
right.
yeah, this has been actually kind of been fun. Like, what else is there?
Oh, so what's what's one thing that like has really scared you? That a scare you've always that stuck with it. You've always remembered from anything, be it a real life thing or a book or a movie or whatever.
I had a nightmare once where I was about to be attacked by a bear, and I actually woke up screaming out loud enough
Shit.
that Dad actually went inside and go, "What the hell is that about?"
like Revenant, like the bear, like a jumping on you and everything.
How about you?
Well, it's not really my most proudest scare, but I was a kid, and it's for a reason why I actually held Ghostface in high esteem. Was that I was in a school, and there was a at night it was a school event for the families, and then there was like a little haunted house made through the library with like loud thumping heart thumps and strobe lights, and they would tell you, "Come look close over here," and I'd be the gullible idiot, look close over there, and people in ghost face masks would be going "Rarg," and that would scare the shit out of me. And every time I would see a random sudden ghost face, I'd be like, little flinch, like, oh, and I say, oh, it's Ghostface, and I've learned to be more endeared toward the image. But the Ghostface mask did used to give me the willies a lot. Like sometimes I would be like sitting in a corner in the dark, and I'd swear I'd see a shape in my mind, and it would have the outline of the Ghostface mask. It was not Ghostface, but I would think of that.
But yeah,
Speaking of Ghostface mask, I'm sure you noticed this in your viewings of Scream 1, but sometimes the Ghostface mask would change a little between some scenes.
I would attribute that to being like Stu and Billy each have a costume of their own.
Yeah, that's good. So, because the real life explanation was that they liked the mask that they found in some cellar from a location scout found, but they didn't know if they had the rights to use that mask. So Wes told the effects crew who make the body doubles and everything to like sculpt their own version of that Ghostface mask, but make it close enough, but different enough to avoid copyright. But then they found out that that the people that make the masks, Fun Faces, was Fantastic World was all on board for making this, and by that point they already filmed a few scenes with that knockoff mask that KGB made. So, like the scenes you see it for sure are the scene when Casey gets stabbed in that long shot when Ghostface is like right behind her, and when Principal Hindley gets killed. That's that fake mask. Yeah, I mean the other mask, and then the rest of the mask it's a traditional Ghostface mask that we see.
Huh.
But I think the most impressive, scariest use of the Ghostface mask for me was in Scream 2. That whole opening when everyone's just in Ghostface mask.
Yeah,
But the way that Mickey made, I'm pretty sure that was Mickey. The way Mickey made his Ghostface move in this particular way was very unsettling, I think. Hell, like I like that bit after he stabs Jada Pinkett, where he just kind of just electric slides out of frame.
but
Also, that scene when Ghostface gets knocked out and they gotta like crawl past him and there's like this big close up on him. I'm thinking that's one of my favorite scenes.
Scream 2 just doesn't get as much credit as it deserves.
I'm sure you would give it much more props if they didn't kill off your avatar in there.
Just
all
why?
because of all because of a leak. Oh man, like I love how often this conversation goes back to Scream. Have you noticed that?
Well, it's kind of hard not to. Like we both kind of live off. I think at some point you actually thought, I think I'm gonna make Ozymandias go through all this.
Oh yes, I did, and I never completed. I actually did have intend to have a full blown Ghostface chase, and it would be comedic at the same time. But
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
me at some point I thought, what if like someone reinterpreted the first Scream movie, but included the Mystery Eat Gang to get involved with helping the mystery?
oh man,
Like, how
like
did that go?
it would be so funny if someone were to me. Let's see who this killer really is. Principal Himley. I would have gone away for it too if it wasn't for your meddling kids and that dog. Oh man, but I think you and I should have a further in-depth Scream retrospective closer to when the newest one comes out in a few years. I mean, it's coming out either next year or the year after. I don't know, but it is coming.
I don't buy for a second it's coming next year. Not once.
Okay, so
But
but
got enough competition with like the newer Saw movie, the Candyman, and fucking Halloween Kills.
and Conjuring 3. Don't forget that one's on the docket too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of horror. But also I think you did say too you had a fun idea for how you would do a Scream short set in the modern day, right?
Yeah, that's one way of putting it.
But yeah, I mean, that is such a fun movie, especially a fun movie to watch with friends and just to laugh along at the tropes and freak out. And it is, I mean, as they say in Halloween, everybody likes a good scare, right? Entitled to one good scare.
Yep.
And I think that's probably a good place to end this all over the place rambling talk, which is the essence of Rambling Bros. We're just there to talk about what we like and whatever comes to mind. And I hope you all enjoyed listening to our thoughts. So, anything else you want to say before we decide to put a little bow on all this?
Yeah, just hope you all have a happy Halloween, and honestly, there's always next year.
Oh, definitely. All right, then. And I also think this was very fun. And you also have a safe Halloween. Buy your own candies if you can. If you do have some, make sure to inspect them and go to safe places. That stuff, people that's that kind of deal. I don't want to be the overbearing parent, but that's that's just me just being out there and have fun because you might have Halloween memories that last with you for a long time because you remember that one time you got the candied apple or that one time you got an actual bar in your bag. So make those memories happen out there and watch a good movie if you like. One within your age range. Don't try to go up too soon before your time. You don't want to watch Alien when you're less than 6.
Well, I mean, how else were they gonna get their action figures made?
Ah, yes. Okay, so have fun. If you're creative, create a little Halloween piece, write something, draw something, or just make a good costume. Like, just have fun because too often we rarely find a holiday that encapsulates so much fun in its being. That's probably why some of us hold Halloween in higher esteem compared to Thanksgiving or Christmas because that is the fun holiday.
Yeah, if you try to get Christmas into our territory again, we'll send Jack Skellington out and have a nice little sequel fun.
So have a happy Halloween. And I don't actually have a particular sign off for this. So next time we'll probably be back with the Extrospective in November. And we'll get back to the high ground eventually soon, especially with Mando coming out and in the High Republic. So that's coming down the docket. So until next time, everybody, we'll be seeing you when we see you. And
Stay spooky.
uh, say it again. Sorry, I cut it off. My bad.
Well, I said stay spooky, but I think the more appropriate thing should be stay spoopy.
Stay spoopy. All right. Have a good evening. And until next time, everybody, let's just still say it, shall we?
Peace out.
Bye bye.
And